All right. Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. This is David Patrick Harry. And tonight we are going to read some church father quotes, and we're taking Friday night call-ins due to viewer requests from our New Year's Eve stream. Everybody wanted me to do call-ins again. I got multiple people message me and requested that they enjoyed watching it, that they wanted to see more of that. And so that is what we're going to be doing tonight. So thank you, everyone who has stopped in. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Friday evening. How you liking 2021 so far? Oh, boy. Yeah, wild times, right? Definitely a period in which hearing some wisdom from the church fathers, I think, will go a long way for many of us. So today, very relaxed stream. We're going to be, like I said, reading some quotes from the church fathers. Same thing, really, I was going to do on New Year's. We ended up talking with people most of the time. So I wanted to at least get a solid, like 20 minutes of just reading quotes in. So people, at least I can cut that clip out of today's video and have a clip that's just for quotes from church fathers, because a lot of the wisdom that are in these quotes, I think, is incredible. So I think it's definitely worth sharing. Please smash that like, guys, if you haven't. Again, welcome, everybody. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Friday night. We are going to have a good time. And we already have a couple people lined up on deck. We got, I think, Lawson there in the chat. He is going to be our first individual that we are going to be doing call-ins with. So Lawson's going to be first, and then I think Poker Bear is going to be number 2. So again, tonight, guys, let me make sure I put this up on the screen here. To go to Instagram. So the way we're going to do call-ins is just like last time. We're either going to go to my Instagram page, which is @DPHarry, or if you have my Telegram. All these links are in the info, by the way, the video description. So if you can just open the video description, you can see all the links to my social media. Instagram allows you to call immediately within DMs. It's one of the easier ways for me to call because this is if you didn't know, I don't have an operation around me. It's a Lone Ranger kind of deals here. So it's easy. If you guys hit me up on Instagram, we can call that way. If you guys want, you can. You don't have Instagram, you want to call in, you can call in through Telegram. Okay, now we'll put that up there and minimize that, throw that right down here. So anybody wants to call in, go ahead and go over to DPHARRY on Instagram. That's going to be one of the best ways to reach me directly so we can end up calling each other. So, oh boy, what a wild time we were in. I know I just saw online before I hopped on here that Donald Trump has officially been banned from Twitter. So the tech tyrants are doing their same old rigmarole as we would expect. So I imagine things are only going to get more and more intense. And that's why, again, this is something I wanted to say tonight. Please, guys, if you like what I'm doing, go to my other social medias on DLive, on BitChute, on Instagram, Facebook, not the most ideal, although I do a lot of, I am really active over on Instagram. But all the other social medias like the Parler, we're going to find out if Parler caves to Apple. I don't know if you guys saw today, but Apple's demanding that Parler institute a new moderation guidelines for their platform. And if they don't, they have 24 hours. They're going to be kicked off the Apple store. So we already see where that's moving. It's already happened to Gab. So follow me on Gab, follow me on mine, follow me on Parler. I'm not familiar with MeWe, but guys, let me know what other social media platforms you're on. I'm going to be starting a Rumble, and I'll be posting all my videos that I share, my streams that I do here on YouTube. I'm going to put those over on Rumble as well. So I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's a sort of emerging alternative to YouTube, if you will. I mean, we'll see the long run. But it's called rumble.com, and it's a video sharing platform, and you can make revenue off your movie or off your videos like YouTube. So potentially that's the future. Obviously, you can't stream and stuff like that, so you only can upload recorded videos, and it takes a little bit longer, obviously, than YouTube, but that might be an option moving forward. So please, guys, open up the description and follow me on all the other social medias just in case. Who knows? I mean, I expect that probably a lot of us will be kicked off this year in 2021 and have to find new ways to interact and engage with people. So please do that. If you like the content that I'm sharing and you'd love to support or have access to exclusive content, please go over to davidpatrickcarey.com/register and become a member. I know I sound like a broken record. I keep saying that, but I'm telling you guys, it's the best way to contribute and help if you'd like. I got tons of videos up over there, both a full library of workout videos and a full library of educational content. So with that being said, let's just start reading some quotes real quick and get in the groove. And then what we will do is take our first caller, which is Lawson, and we'll start having some convos, having a Friday night conversation. Again, guys, feel free if you want to hop in tonight and talk. You want to reflect on the world, state on how you're sort of feeling with everything that's going on in the United States. Feel free. Just ask that you keep the language clean. Right? Let's just keep it orthodox. But if you'd like to vent or have anything to say or ask a specific question, let me know. Message me on Instagram at DPHARRY, and we're going to do some call-ins. So let's get started while people start to funnel into the stream by just reading some wisdom from the church fathers. So the first one I want to start with was a quote from St. Peter of Damascus, and it reads, "Should we fall, we should not despair, so estrange ourselves from the Lord's love. For if he so chooses, he can deal mercifully with our weaknesses. Only we should not cut ourselves off from him or feel oppressed when constrained by his commandments, nor should we lose heart when we fall short of our goal. Let us always be ready to make a new start. If you fall, rise up. If you fall again, rise up again. Only do not abandon your physician, lest you be condemned as worse than a suicide because of your despair. Wait on him, and he will be merciful, either reforming you or sending you trials, or through some other provision of which you are ignorant." So maybe that is some wisdom all of us should keep in mind with what's going on, is that ultimately God is in control of history. Ultimately, God is in control of America. Are we being punished? Is this going to be used in a sort of providential way or things? Who knows? But ultimately, God is in control. So we have to, as much as the anxiety and potentially despair has arisen in many of our hearts, we have to put that aside. Next quote is from St. John Kronstadt, and it is, "As the Holy Trinity, our God is one being, although three persons. So likewise, we ourselves must be one. As our God is indivisible, we also must be indivisible, as though we were one man, one mind, one will, one heart, one goodness, without the smallest admixture of malice, and a word, one pure love, as God is love. Quote, that they may be one, even as we are one," unquote, reference to John chapter 17, verse 22. Great quote by St. John of Kronstadt. Always remember, this is from Archbishop Anastasios of Albania. Archbishop Anastasios of Albania. Always remember that at the last judgment, we are judged for loving him or failing to love him in the least person. St. John of Kronstadt, another quote says, "Do not be irritated either with those who sin or those who offend. Do not have a passion for noticing every sin in your neighbor or for judging him, as we are in the habit of doing. Everyone shall give an answer to God for himself. Everyone has a conscience. Everyone hears God's word and knows God's will, either from books or from conversation with other people. Especially do not look with evil intention upon the sins of your elders, which do not regard you." Quote, "To his own master he standeth or falleth," unquote. "Correct your own sins and amend your own life." And I think that is really some wisdom that all of us can take on in regards to the chaos that we now see in the country, is that we know the evil is here. We know that they're coming. Really, there's nothing better than just to stop focusing on, politics so much. Now that the Trump cult is sort of over, and that emphasis, potentially the calm, because the globalists have full control now of power that may arise, may be the perfect time to just grind, and focus on you and your loved ones. Just focus on you, focus on your relationship with God. Maybe it's time that you got to save money, you got to move, you got to get to a new place, you got to do something for other people. Always start with your relationship with God, obviously, but I think St. John of Kronstadt has some wise words there for us. Next quote is from St. Tikhon of Voronezh. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Who knows? We see the water of a river flowing in uninterruptedly and passing away, and all that floats on the surface, rubbish or beams or trees, all pass by. Christian, so does your life. I was an infant, and at that time I was gone. I was an adolescent, and that too has passed. I was a young man, and that too is far behind me. The strong and mature man I was is no more. My hair turns white. I succumb to age. But that too passes. I approach the end and will go the way of all flesh. I was born in order to die. I die that I may live. Remember me, O Lord, in the kingdom. I love that quote. Next one is from St. John of Kronstadt. This is from his writing on My Life in Christ. Quote, a man who is wrathful with us is a sick man. We must apply a plaster to his heart. Love. We must treat him kindly, speak to him gently, lovingly. And if there is not deeply rooted malice against us within him, but only a temporary fit of anger, you will see how his heart or his malice will melt away through your kindness and love. How good will conquers evil. A Christian must always be kind, gracious, and wise in order to conquer evil by good. I'll repeat that last one. A Christian must always be kind, gracious, and wise in order to conquer evil by good. Next quote comes from the letters of St. Herman of Alaska. A true Christian is made by faith and love toward Christ. Our sins do not in the least hinder our Christianity. According to the word of the Savior himself, he deigned to say, not the righteous have I come to call, but sinners to salvation. There is more joy in heaven over one who repents than over 90 righteous ones. Likewise, concerning the sinful woman who touched his feet, he deigned to say to the Pharisee Simon, to one who has love, a great debt is forgiven. But from one who has no love, even a small debt will be demanded. From these judgments, a Christian should bring himself to hope and joy, and not in least except in inflicted despair. Here one needs to shield of faith. Here one needs the shield of faith. St. Gregory the theologian, God always was and always is and always will be, or rather, God is, for was and will be are fragments of our time and of changeable nature. But he is eternal being, and this is the name that he gives to himself when giving the oracle to Moses on the mount. For in himself he sums up and contains all being, having neither beginning in the past nor end in the future. Some great sea of being, limitless and unbounded, transcending all conception of time and nature, only adumbrated by the mind, and that very dimly and scantily. St. John Chrysostom, even if we have thousands of acts of great virtue to our credit, our confidence in being heard must be based in God's mercy and his love for men. Even if we stand at the very summit of virtue, it is by mercy that we shall be saved. St. John of Chrysostom. St. Isaac the Syrian, the man who follows Christ in solitary mourning is greater than he who praises Christ amid the congregation of men. St. Isaac the Syrian. Abatithos, the way of humility is this: self-control, prayer, and thinking yourself inferior to all creatures. Unquote. That's Abbot Tithos. St. Clement of Alexandria, quote, I think that one must approach the Logos Savior not induced by fear of punishment and not in the expectation of some kind of reward, but primarily for the sake of the good in itself. Such will stand on the right in the sanctuary. I love that one. Let me read that one again. By St. Clement of Alexandria, I think that one must approach the Logos Savior not induced by the fear of punishment and not in the expectation of some kind of reward, but primarily for the sake of the good in itself. Such will stand on the right in the sanctuary. St. Maximus the Confessor, quote, but I say to you, the Lord says, quote, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute you, unquote. Why did he command us to do these things? So that he might free you from hatred, sadness, anger, and grudges, and might grant you the greatest possession of all, perfect love, which is impossible to possess except by the one who loves all equally in imitation of God. Father Hopko, quote, modern interpretations of the commandment in the Torah reflect this individualistic attitude. The first commandment is that you love God with all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. And the second is that you love your neighbor as yourself. The only way you can prove you love God is by loving your neighbor. And the only way you can love your neighbor in this world is by endless forgiveness. So, quote, love your neighbor as yourself, unquote. However, in certain modern editions of the Bible, I have seen this translated as, quote, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. But that's not what it says. Wow. And you could see how that you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself really hitting home as a sort of narcissism that's being sort of promoted there. Another one from St. John of Kronstadt. Remember that the Lord is in every Christian. When your neighbor comes to you, always have a great respect for him, because the Lord is in him and often expresses his will through him. It is God which worketh in both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Therefore, do not grudge anything to your brother, but do unto him as unto the Lord, especially as you do not know in whom the Lord will come and visit you. Be impartial to all, be kind to all, sincere and hospitable. Remember that sometimes God speaks even through unbelievers, or disposes their heart toward us, as it happened in Egypt when the Lord gave Joseph favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Unquote. That was St. John of Kronstadt. Well, I think that's at least about 20 minutes of quotes. I think it's about time we get into our first caller, right? So let me go pull this up over on Instagram. See if Lawson is there. I think I saw him over in the chat earlier, so hopefully he's still with us. Guys, smash that like if you haven't. All right, so we are going to get into it with our first caller, Lawson. Let's hear it. How you doing, brother?
Hey, man, I'm chilling. I'm just hanging out in my car here because I figured it would be a better space than letting it all hang out inside at the home.
I feel you. How's your day been, man? You having a good Friday?
Oh yeah, man. I went for a run earlier. Got a good meal in. It's been a good day.
Heck yeah. So what's going on, man?
What's
on your mind with everything?
I don't know, man. There's so many different directions any of these, like in terms of the format of what you're doing here, there's so many different directions I guess you could go in terms of like what type of conversation you want to have, you know.
Right.
I had like a few ideas in my mind and a few thoughts here and there, but I was gonna just start off mentioning that was a dope Jordan Peterson stream, man.
Oh, thanks, brother. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, it was great. And you know, so it's funny. I think you kind of laid the hammer down at one point. Somebody said something, and you were like, "Guys, just cut it out with the low IQ stuff." And I was like, you know, we don't want to be too hard on the people that are coming here to learn and that kind of thing, you know. But like, there is a thing to that where I was noticing. I'm like, are we not seeing like the nuance in the conversation here? It's not all about, you know, Jordan Peterson is God all over again. It's more about just appreciating that he can and he has brought something to the table, you know?
Right. Exactly. And I remember that comment is somebody was trying to say, because the point of the video is that I've been vocally very critical of Jordan Peterson, and I've had people privately reach out and say, "Hey, but Jordan Peterson was he was so beneficial for me to look into Christianity, and eventually I found your content, this or that." And I understood that, and in fact, I went through that transition as well. And so I wanted to talk about Peterson as not the way that most people perceive me, as like lumping him with Shapiro and sort of always being so overly critical of him, but give him a due justice as seeing how his worldview, how his ideas, how his teachings actually fit to move the Overton window for so many people towards the right and eventually towards Christianity by using secular Enlightenment, Jungian, utilitarian understandings of what Christianity is. Even though ultimately it doesn't go far enough, I think it was really beneficial for a lot of people. And so the guy then in the comment section, he was like, "But Jordan Peterson isn't right wing," and it's frustrating when it's like, dude, I know I'm not like this is a nuance, like you said, it's a nuanced conversation. We're not. Good Lord.
I agree, and you know, it's not everyone is going to be as like studious in these kind of manners or matters, I should say, but you know. And not everyone has like the firsthand experience of what that was, and they're just kind of like looking at the guy from the outside, which I totally kind of can understand that.
Right.
For me, it was just like I found what you said to be like very relatable, and it's just kind of funny because I came to listening to Jay Dyer, I came to listening to yourself because of a path that somewhere along the lines had me listening to Jordan Peterson first.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's really interesting, man.
Yeah, and I think that's what is happening now, is because I did that stream on the 6th with at least what I felt in my heart was with the Capitol building, and then eventually with Trump's secession speech, whether that was a deep fake or not. I've heard people theorizing about that, but just the way in which he more severely condemned his own supporters who, you know, some were and some weren't, you know, at the Capitol building, when he's the one that called all them to be there in the first place for a legitimate reason for the election and all this different stuff, and then is more severely criticizes them for that action than he did BLM in the context of the whole globalist establishment using this event as a setup to paint people in a certain way. And basically with the movies that we have seen before where I forget what it was called, but basically insinuating like there was open season on Trump supporters and you could hunt them. But that's all a priming for what we're moving into. And that's why it was a couple years before the state. And so the state in which we are now, meaning they have full power of our government, in the way that they're framing domestic terrorists, the way they're trying to label Ashley Babbitt as like this criminal and all this, you know, it's astonishing. It's scary. It's infuriating. It's all these different emotions. And we just have to like let go and realize, okay, well, ultimately God's in control. Ultimately, God is allowing all this to happen, whether it's going to, you know, evil's ultimately going to undercut itself or what. But Yeah, it's such a crazy, crazy time. And for so many of us who got here, just like the people with the Trump, the reason I brought all that up is because I feel like now we move beyond Trump. You see, Trump was pro LGBTQ. He was still, even though he represented this countercultural movement as an individual to lead people, he was still embedded within the same system that we were fighting against. So whoever emerges next, they're gonna be so much further right to than Trump was, but he was a necessary window, just as Peterson was a necessary window for so many people to pass through, right? So you see the utility of these things, and like you take in all the Peterson content, and then that puts you at a new place, and you realize, well, now this beginning place, that now you're more interested in the things to the right of that, or where those things ultimately go in regards to, you're talking about Dyer. So the transcendental argument, looking at metaphysics, how you account for these transcendentals that everybody believes in. Now you're at such a deeper level of analysis. You realize, well, geez, Peterson was talking about truth and logic and logos and all, but at the same time, he doesn't even have a worldview that can account for the objectivity of truth. He doesn't have a worldview that can account for the objectivity of numbers and all this stuff. So,
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I mean, yeah, I think you're encompassing a lot there, but the whole Jordan Peterson thing, man, it's an interesting conversation, and I think like a lot of people haven't been trying to have it in a way where it's not like, at least in this sphere, our sphere, if you want to call it that,
right,
where it's not like a little bit nuanced. You know, we can be saying, you know, maybe he's not the kind of hero that a lot of us were thinking he might have been. But yeah, it was a really good time to kind of like capture the energy of a lot of young men that were like not really liking the direction of the world, you know?
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what Peterson represented in regards to the postmodernism and the sort of status quo of the academia. And then Trump represented that in regards to politics. But all that was ultimately all that stuff. Why I find it providential is just to wake people up so they can see the world. And that's what all that stuff was. You know, it's like the framework that Peterson provided in regards to the sort of Jungian analysis of deeper understanding of symbols and archetypes. It's just so you could see something useful within Christianity when you've already totally rejected it. And so now that you see something useful, you move a little bit more into it. And now you can see truth resonate at a multitude of levels. You can see, oh, well, they're ethics. You know, I do have a sort of Christian morality.
Right.
Oh, well, maybe I do have a sort of Christian epistemology and how I believe in the objectivity of the world. Interesting. You know, and now you realize, oh, well, geez, I am Christian other than the fact that I don't claim Christ to be king and God. Maybe that's where I need to go next. Right.
Yeah, it's sort of funny in a way how like the whole you know, God's providence in that domain, in terms of a lot of people being turned on to Jordan Peterson, the ultimate like end goal there, it seemed like, was to kind of reveal to all of us that, you know, he didn't have it all quite figured out. And it's like, it's just kind of funny to me that like a lot of people, it seems like from the comments and like the kind of discussion that's being had, that a lot of people went to that space and that framework, and they were just like, oh, well, like this is starting to like add up, but it's not really answering any questions, you know? And then they got into like looking at the Christian and actually like, you know, maybe picking up their Bible and like, oh, I remember this.
Exactly. Yeah. Eventually it is, they want to go deeper, and that's why, again, people move beyond Jordan Peterson. But I think he was useful for many people's journeys. And so I think that's also, he always wanted to talk about order and chaos, all this different stuff. I think potentially with this benzo addiction and him hopefully getting clean, and you know, and God bless him and his family, maybe God gave him his own dark night of the soul. The fact that he made so many millions of dollars talking about the dark night of the soul, and all this different, you know, psychological framework for the journey of the individual. well, maybe God, that's exactly what he did to him, and that's what all this stuff is, and maybe that's the completing of his sort of providential purpose. Maybe Jordan will be still a sort of public figure. He'll never acclaim the height that he was once at, but maybe that's
Right.
what the purpose of it all was. Is to get as a light a spark in all these young men. All these young men then build this sort of self-confidence, and then they see the guy who gave them that spark, that he was addicted, that now he falls off the precipice, and then the young men realize, well, geez, the person who's actually going to change the future is myself. It's not Jordan Peterson. It's not Donald Trump. They're not going to change the world. They're not going to change the problems in my life. They're not going to change the fallen nature of power and how governments work in the world.
Thank goodness, right? I don't know if it was up to Donald Trump that a whole lot would get done.
Right. Exactly. And so we just have to become more conscious, more independent, and more dependent upon God.
Yeah.
More independent within the worldly terms, but then also like more dependent upon God. And I think that is going to be where a lot of us end up going. That's why I think so many of us see the homestead movement. We see the family. We all see the same trajectory now because we have the right tools to look at the world, and so because of that, we can see what the next move should be for many of us. And I think that's why the homestead movement is going to be so popular. Again, being more self-reliant and then more dependent upon God is the way in which you're going to have to be free in this world.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a lot of us that saw and experienced, probably, throughout the 90s or whenever you were growing up, not always the best examples of fathers. I also think you hit the nail on the head in that regard, and that a lot of us were just kind of like, clawing at the world to find somebody that was like, that embodied somewhat of masculine principles. And so if it hadn't have been Jordan Peterson, or if people hadn't have clinged on to Donald Trump as some kind of like more masculine, like competent kind of figure, it would have been somebody else. But
right, exactly, and that's
definitely providential.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. That's exactly why I was trying to highlight in the stream, because they both represent masculinity in different ways, and sort of the psychological, the intellectual side of Peterson is attractive for many young men who that's more of their proclivity. The sort of macho mentality that Trump presents may be the proclivity of some people, but what they ultimately represent is masculine energy pushing against the ultimately demonic feminizing spirit of this world.
Amen, brother. There's a lot of that.
So, but is there anything else you wanna mention?
No, I don't want to take up too much of your time, man. But I think it's really cool that you're doing the call-in thing, and hopefully you'll keep it going, and we'll be able to strike up even more clever conversations in the future, and actually like hit home on some bigger topics, But I was kind of thinking about the Jordan Peterson thing just because it was your last stream,
right?
And I thought that was like, sort of just like a different kind of angle that I hadn't seen a lot of people in this circle take, where it's like, well, hold on, like it wasn't an all totally bad thing. It was the reason I'm here, in some way, shape, or form. So.
Right.
I just thought I'd mention that. And,
well, I appreciate it, brother. No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for all the support, just hopping on the streams, and man, I appreciate it. I really do. So I
try to keep up with all of them that I can, man. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And I just like, if I could leave with one note, just say to the people that like are checking out your channel and like, taking a look at what you're doing, and they're digging on it. I know that you like advocate for yourself, and that's can be kind of like a hard space to stay in all the time. I know it gets tedious to like have to do that.
Right.
And so like, just, I think that there's a thing, connected to this Orthodox thing. I think that there's a movement in just Christianity in general and the things that are happening now. And I think that we all need to be kind of looking around and looking at people like you and other people in the world that are not trying to remain in the world, that are trying to do or to be of the world, I should say,
right.
But that are trying to do bigger things and have bigger conversations, and as much as people can to support that kind of thing, and help people build off of that, so that more people can come to these types of channels and like realize that they're not just one person having like these kinds of thoughts bubble up into their mind, that there's a whole bunch of us out here, and it'd be like a sweet brotherhood to have like a level of connectedness around the world when the time comes, So I think it's starting, but it's slow.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much, brother. It is always awkward. I don't tend to always self-promote, but you have to. And so I do feel awkward though when I'm always asking people to go to my website and sign up. But you gotta do what you gotta do. It's part of the gig.
People that are true Christians should be seeing what you're doing and paying attention to I think the theology of orthodoxy is key right now. I do think there's something in that direction that like at some point or another a lot of us are gonna get scattered about, more likely than not, and we're gonna want to know who are the real ones, out here. So
right, agree, man. Amen.
Anyway.
Well, brother, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. I love the convo. I really appreciate all the words of support and the encouragement.
Yeah, man. So,
definitely
what do you go by the way? Do you do the DPH thing?
Yeah, people call me DPH.
DPH?
Yeah. David is my professional name. So that's how I know.
Okay.
But anybody who knows me in my real life, like my day-to-day, everybody calls me Patrick. So I got tons of names, but
calls you what?
Patrick. So I've always gone by my middle name because my dad has the same first name, and I'm actually like the third David. So I always grew up going by my middle name. When I was in school, I always went by my middle name. When I played basketball, it was my middle name and my last name. So rarely did I ever go by my first name. But then obviously after high school, when people look at your name, it's David Patrick Harry. So everybody calls me David. So it's one way in which I know if they're like my friend, if it's like a friendly relationship, or it's a more business professional relationship based on what name they use.
Got you. All right, well, support DPH, right?
Yes.
And God bless, brother.
Thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. Where are you at, by the way? Where are you at in the country?
I'm out in Northern Virginia. So like not too far away from the mayhem. Actually, I'm in the suburbs, but I'm far enough away where I'm kind of like in the bubble. It's
well,
it's a
safe,
safe,
man.
It's a safe bubble. Out here in Northern Virginia, that's what people kind of refer to it as, because it's a nicer area. When shit pops off, when things pop off,
it's all good, man.
It's elsewhere. Typically, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Well, stay safe, man. Again, God bless, and thanks so much for the kind words, the words of encouragement. And good luck to you and your journey and all the things that will come in 2021. Who knows, man?
Well, many more conversations, I hope, at least.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
And then maybe we'll die.
Well, yeah, please, next time I have a call in, man, try to call in if you can. Love to have another convo.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Take it easy, brother. Have a great night. God bless.
All right, man. You too. God bless. Peace.
All right. Great first caller with Lawson. We had been going back and forth, so it was really, really good to actually talk for the first time. We had been messaging. So I know Poker Bear was the gentleman who I said would be next. Let me see if he's there. Poker Bear. Again, guys, anybody who wants to call in tonight, feel free. Dave's down to talk. So Look like Poker Bear is the first one. We are going to go to Poker Bear now and give him a call and speak with him. So. Well, if he answers, Poker Bear. He's not answering. He just messaged me saying he was here. Let me call him back. So great first call. Thank you, Lawson, man. That was a great first call, man. Really appreciate it. Come on, Poker Bear. Oh, he said it's not working. I bet Poker Bear doesn't have the app. Poker Bear does not have the app, I don't believe. No, Poker Bear has the app. Dave's back. Dave's down to talk again tonight. And Radio Musician. Radio Musician is down to talk. I may have to give okay. Well, we're just calling Poker Bear a straight number. We're just going old school. He just gave me his number. So, we're just calling Poker Bear.
Hello?
Hey, brother, what's going on? This is Patrick.
Hey, Patrick, how's it going? Sorry the app's not working for me.
It's all good in the hood, man. It's technology. Who knows? It could be an update or something. I wouldn't tell you, well, go with it, because I hate updating anyways. It seems like things always get messed up.
Okay.
But how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Where do you find yourself at?
I am just outside of Boulder, Colorado, actually.
Ooh, well, that's a pretty liberal place you find yourself.
You said it, man. And I'm actually looking to move to North Carolina by June.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Are you moving solo? You got a girl, got a wife?
Yeah, man. I got a wife. I have a 3-month-old boy.
Oh, wow! Congratulations, brother.
Yeah. We're my wife's family's in Virginia, so
okay.
We'd like to get closer to family, and yeah, we're gonna do the homesteading thing out there. So.
Wow, dude. Good. That's my goals. I'm still trying to find the right woman, but I'm trying to save money and do exactly that, man. You feel like you're doing the dream that most of us want to have, really.
Yeah, man. The opportunity presents itself. My home value went way up, so just gonna cash out and keep on moving. By the way, great call with Lawson. Props to that guy.
Oh, thanks, man.
That was a really, really good call you guys just had. And yeah, man. Tonight I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the psychedelic world viewpoint, and kind of where to start as a new Christian.
Yeah.
So just a quick background. Raised in a secular atheist household my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently 33. I had a mushroom trip at age 20 in college, and I can definitely say that was an entheogenic experience.
Yeah.
After that, I definitely couldn't identify with the guys I was listening to at the time: Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, those guys.
Right.
And yeah, man, very similar to you and Dylan from Existential Delight.
Right.
Went into the whole psychedelic worldview, Tibetan Buddhism, kind of got into that whole game. And I guess I really wanted to know, you had mentioned on a previous stream that you had an LSD experience where you kind of found logos, and maybe your final one, and this kind of led you to where you are now. Right. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that experience.
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is I hinted at an experience I had on my journey to orthodoxy experience, or at least my journey to where I am now. And I talked about how after I had done a semester of Orthodox theology, so that was a spring semester. So, the school year starts in the fall. So the first semester, my research was focused on the psychedelic gospels, that book by Jerry and Julie Brown, of which Dr. Jerry Brown is actually on my dissertation committee. And I really got into that book and the research, came to a little bit of a different conclusion, but I thought, geez, I wonder if a lot of that stuff is going to be found within Eastern Orthodoxy, given R. Gordon Lawson, his wife, Valentina Pavlovna, that Slavic languages have such a wide diversity of terms to refer to mushrooms, and that they are what would be called like a mushroom philic culture, that going and picking mushrooms in the wild, this is a very common and natural thing. And that's why their language is so much more nuanced in describing mushrooms, where in English we have toadstool, fungus, and mushroom. That's all we have. So we don't live in a culture that eats or consumes or picks mushrooms, frequently. So I thought, geez, I wonder, given at the time my girlfriend was Ukrainian and she was culturally Orthodox. I was not a Christian at the time. And she didn't really go to church or anything. It was just for Pascha and Christmas. And it was like, again, like a cultural thing. But I knew that she was Eastern Orthodox, and I was like, oh, well, I bet there might be some of these frescoes, some of these artistic depictions of what appears to be a psychedelic mushroom in Eastern Orthodoxy. So I took this course at the university. It was on Eastern Orthodox theology. And that really gave me the basis. That's why I was able to kind of jump into talking about so much of this stuff, is because I took a course, really a comprehensive overview of what Orthodox theology was. And really loved the concept of the Logos. Now, at the same time, I'm still psychedelic. I'm still spiritual but not religious. At the same time, I have conservative political ideologies. I'm inside Berkeley, and I see the anti-white male sentiment, of which I'm facing daily, defending myself and all this stuff. So it's like this weird milieu of, and I think that's also why Peterson is attractive, because he doesn't challenge, if you have a habit, say with psychedelics or drugs or whatever, you can find all that stuff from Peterson, very well attractive. And somehow you're not with the leftist progressive group, but at the same time you're not necessarily changing the way you live your life. And I was wrapped up in that, still smoking weed every day, doing the same old thing. And then eventually I had a psychedelic trip after the summer. So that was the summer of 2018. I had a high dose LSD experience where basically it started to connect a bunch of dots. And most people who've done psychedelics and didn't have like traumatically negative experiences, usually one of the reasons why people like it is the sort of connecting of dots and the takeaways you have, the conceptual takeaways.
Right.
And that's what I love. That was the thrill. That's why I did it. And that's kind of what I do on this YouTube channel. It's like the sober version of what I loved doing when I was doing drugs, is like trying to connect dots. I wanted to do that personally in my own mind. And then what I do now, it feels like, is I'm not doing all the drugs, but I'm trying to connect all the dots for other people as to where all those drugs took me.
Right. Yeah, man. And I was such a staunch atheist before my psychedelic experience that it might have been something that was powerful enough to get me out of that. So I'm just wondering, like, what's your current viewpoint on psychedelics, I guess?
Yeah.
It's like a double-edged sword,
Right.
I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today on this path of Orthodox Christianity, but at the same time, I can't really advocate for them,
Right.
because it's not the ideal route, I would say,
Right.
to go down. But
and it's for certain psyches. This is the big thing for me.
Right.
It's like it's hard to talk about these things publicly, generally speaking, because everybody takes what you're saying in a different way. And for me, I didn't have a lot of negative experience. I did a lot of different psychedelics. I was always into having an idea or having something that I wanted to think more about. It was always about getting into those altered states, often by myself. I like doing them by myself. So it wasn't like a party thing, wasn't like a group thing. It was purely that I loved to go into these altered states because I could have a topic And then I would just sit and think about that topic under that altered state for hours. And I felt like I would just connect so many dots, and that it was so beneficial for my life and what I thought. And so that's what happened when this Logos experience is that I took this large LSD experience in my apartment in Berkeley, and I started to like have all these crazy dots connect with, again, what we would call Logos theology. I already read an overview in regards to orthodoxy, but then it was a new experience. It was a phenomenological experience of everything, where now all that theology that I had read and not believed, because I didn't believe, again, I was like spiritual but not religious and all this different stuff. But all that theology I had read, now, again, like what Dyer is always trying to talk about, like the metaphysics, and it's like all that stuff connected, like the whole thing connected, the whole idea of, the Logos and what I talk about on this YouTube channel. It's like a lot of those dots fell into place, or they slid into place, and the dots connected during that experience.
Yeah, man,
now, does that
I
experience?
can relate. I had that same connected dots experience from your recent stream called "You Are Chosen."
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was that what you just described, this sobering psychedelic experience almost, where it was like, wow, like everything's actually coming together for once. And I'm not under the influence of these entheogens, And it was, I thank you, brother, for that stream. It has changed the course of my life, man.
Oh my gosh! Well,
big time, big time.
Wow. Well, thank you, brother, just for listening. I'm so glad that anything I had to say could impact you in such a positive way. But yeah, it's funny how all this stuff works out. And I want to preface talking about all this drug stuff because, again, I know you have experience and stuff. Not everybody has experience with this stuff, so they don't have a context to interpret it, especially when I'm talking about the Logos and God and Orthodox Christianity. And obviously these things are all contradictory and they don't go together. So I just want to say for everybody watching that I'm not saying psychedelics brought me to Jesus or psychedelics are necessary to connect dots in regards to or anything like that. What I'm saying is, for my personal journey, which was rooted in this idea, very egotistical idea, that I had to experience things, that I had to know it for myself, that the only way in which I could ultimately get back to Christ would have been through in a highly intellectual avenue and through the psychedelics, because I had placed so much validity in those experiences that within the psychedelic realm, that domain, that somehow I had closer access to truth. And so because I thought that, which I don't believe to be true, that is why then it's funny how God, the Logos, his providential journey for me took me from there and then took me to a totally different place, but had built a lifestyle throughout my entire 20s promoting it and promoting psychedelics and promoting new age ideas. And then within basically one evening, there's no way I could continue to do that. Now, I wasn't a Christian immediately afterwards. I had just connected all the dots regarding this concept of Logos. So that's probably August of 18. And like I said, I've always told people it was 11/11/18. So it was in November in which I totally gave my life to Christ. Verbal commitment. I had been praying and stuff like that. And so it's like after that LSD experience, I started to go to churches and pray. And it was the prayer that I think really started to work on my heart just by doing it as an activity. It's like, the first time you're like, am I really doing this? And then all of a sudden, you can't explain it to somebody. And it's so funny. It's like the journey to Christianity is like the psychedelic experience of all psychedelic experiences.
Absolutely, man. I amen to that. All right. And yeah, just, one quick highlight from, it was actually that stream you did with Dylan from Existential Delight. That really resonated with me. And I think, just in case there are any people listening who are kind of coming from the psychedelic worldview,
right?
It was how you guys discussed that you have this ego dissolving experience, this boundary dissolving experience, yet you come out thinking that you're actually special because you have some sort of insight now.
Right.
And that contradiction, I just thought that was definitely worth pointing out to people that you might feel like you have some insight, but it's it's very, I don't know, illusory, I guess. Can't think of the term here.
Right.
Yeah, man. Changing up gears. One other last thing. Don't want to take up too much of your time.
No,
tonight.
feel free.
Sure. So, what kind of advice would you have for someone in my current position where I'm very new to Christianity, and I've researched the churches in Colorado and stuff, but since I'm moving to North Carolina and I have to sell properties, I have to get all my things in order, so right now I'm just like, I'm reading Victory in the Unseen Warfare. I'm praying every day. I'm wondering what kind of advice you would have for someone in my position who's very new and open right now.
Yeah. Did you grow up Christian?
No, secular atheist household.
Oh, wow. Well, that benefits you, actually, because that puts you in a great place to better understand the tradition. Because one of the difficulties, at least as somebody who promotes Orthodoxy, again, I wasn't attached to Protestantism per se when I joined Orthodoxy, but a lot of people, if they grew up Christian, mostly grow up Catholic or Protestant, have a lot of attachments to that quote-unquote theology or worldview or whatnot. My first advice would be, well, what part of North Carolina are you moving to? I know a few good Orthodox people and family people that live in North Carolina.
Oh, cool. We're looking actually a little bit north of Charlotte area right now. I know there's a big Mennonite community there, because if you just follow the Mennonites if you want to know where there's good places to grow food in the country.
Right.
So yeah, we're still actually kind of open to it as well, but we're going to start in kind of that area, just north of Charlotte. Oh,
nice. So are you specifically, have you been listening to Dyer? I'm trying to ask, really, the question I want to know is how familiar you are with Orthodoxy. Because it's
I have listened to some stuff from Dyer. I've listened to a few of your things. The way I even kind of got into Christianity was, oddly enough, Owen Benjamin and the Bears.
Right, I saw that your name was Poker Bear, so I figured.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to him, and then when he had E. Michael Jones on, and E. Michael Jones started talking about logos,
right,
that really finally resonated with me. And his Catholicism didn't resonate with me, but his discussion about the logos started opening up my eyes.
Right.
And that's when I started to go down the rabbit hole and found you, found Dyer, found you, Existential Delight, those kinds of people.
Right. Well, what I would recommend, and this was just the for me, is it sounds like, again, your sort of introduction, even through E. Michael Jones, to the concept of logos was kind of like the leading edge. And that for you need a little bit of a conceptual way into the tradition, because it sounds like you're just kind of more of a heady person. That's probably why you're into psychedelics in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And even made by Jim Bob, talking about the transcendental argument, that was kind of, the line I've been going down.
Yeah.
That's what got me into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would say to just continue to learn more about logos, because ultimately the more you learn about that concept, you're going to be able to better see that Orthodox Christianity, Eastern Orthodoxy, has a unique theology out of all the other world traditions. And it is specifically about creating a tradition to worship this concept of logos. So so when we talk about logos, then it's like another way from the Christian context. Well, then let's figure out which tradition is worshiping the logos in the most efficient and consistent way. And so when we look then at things like logos logoi distinction, energy essence distinction, these are things that you're only going to find within the Eastern Orthodox theology. So with Protestantism, they don't talk about you don't hear many Protestants talk about logos. They may now, because it's becoming more popular and more popular. But for me, this was the way that I got into it. It's just I just kept reading and reading about logos. And orthodoxy, the theology is so beautiful. There's nothing I can do to say in this conversation that would ultimately convince you. But orthodoxy, unlike any other religion, has what's called the energy essence distinction. And this is extremely important. And this is one of the first things that I like to highlight to people, is why Orthodox Christianity is so different and so important and so unique. And that is, when we claim things about God, do the things that we describe God with take precedent actually over God? So if we say God is one, can God never be multiplicity? Does the concept of oneness actually encapsulate the idea of God, or does God transcend the concept of oneness? So when we say what is called apophatic and cataphatic, when we make cataphatic claims about God, we're saying what God is. And so then the question at a philosophical level is, are we talking about the essence of God? And what are we talking about when we talk about the attributes or descriptors of God? Because God, by definition, is transcendent. So now you've entered into a theological debate, and you can look at how the different world religions begin to account for these things within Christianity. So eventually you come maybe to the conclusion, okay, well, Christianity is the true religion. What form of Christianity? The energy essence distinction preserves the absolute transcendence and separation and distinction between God and creation, because God's essence isn't love, as what you would often hear. And when people promote Thomas Aquinas or absolute divine simplicity, we see that when you encounter ideas that people promote, like when you encounter love or you experience love, you're experiencing God and all this stuff. But in Orthodoxy, we would never say that, because when you really, really, really get critical at it, it's fine to say that when you're just with friends, but if you're doing like a debate and you want to know what is true, God, you're making a claim about the essence of God. And so right. Orthodoxy says, well, we actually can't talk about the essence of God. We're going to begin our theology there. Unique starting point, which all of us conceptually recognize.
Right. So Orthodox is the only one that has this distinction that you found, or the only
that absolutely, it's explicit. Well, within world religions, all of them are going to end up making what are called essentialist claims about the essence of God. Okay. So Orthodoxy is a different intellectual project, in the sense that it's actually trying to collapse opposing ideas. And that's what's called dialectics. And so philosophy for such a long time was built on this concept of thinking about things in terms of their opposites, which gives you a sort of traction, right? That friction is how you move, right? Even when you walk, you have to have friction against the ground. So friction, or dialectics, thinking in terms of opposites, it gives you a way to move in regards to thinking. But there's always dialectical tension there. If God is good, well, then how do we account for evil? And then you get these Gnostic ideas where God is warring with the devil and evil and good, and it's this eternal battle and all this difference. Well, none of that stuff makes sense, because if God is God, why would he have to war with evil? He would be able to annihilate evil in a second. Again, Orthodoxy says exactly that. So then our concept of evil is totally different. So Orthodoxy says we're not ever interacting with the essence of God, and you can't know the essence of God, which all of us, most people would say, yep, at an intellectual level, that makes sense. I'm with you. Then Orthodoxy says, but you interact directly with God. And then the Protestants would say, whoa, are you sure? Or some of the Catholics would object. Depends on what theological standpoint they have. But we would say, yeah, you interact directly with God, but you're interacting with the energies of God. And the way that we understand our theology is the same way in which you understand and interact with me, because we interact with God as persons. And so when you and I are having a conversation for the first time right now, you are consciously or subconsciously assessing me, taking things in, learning about who I am through energetic activities, the way I speak, my tonation, potentially if you're watching me, the way I move my hands, the way I dress, all these things are indicators. These are all energetic processes. And it's through my energies that you, Poker Bear, comes to know who I am.
Right.
So
Right.
that is also how we come to know God. And so we can you see how orthodoxy takes what magic would talk about, sympathetic correspondential patterns, hermeticism, as above, so below. Orthodoxy isn't rooted within, again, those dialectical worldviews that those come from. Much have Neoplatonic elements, but it's about collapsing dialectics. But it is beautiful in the way that there's a correspondence between the way you and I interact, between you and God interacts, because it's all built on this theology of persons.
Right.
And that persons is the true way in which we engage with the world. So I've talked about in previous streams about abstract concepts like love the world, or, all these things that the globalist agenda promotes. When you see it's all going to be these really abstract concepts of social justice, of all these different things. But in Orthodox theology specifically, it would violate our theology to begin to promote those things, because the way in which you actually promote justice, the way in you actually love the world, can only be done on a one-to-one level. The only way Patrick can put more love into the world is by loving one person at a time. And that is not an abstract concept. That is not a generalistic statement about the world and saying that I love this or I'm going to do this. And all those ways, all those times that people put their energies into these abstract generalities, they're being manipulated. That literally, what in my opinion, Satan is taking their energy and using it against them ultimately in regards to what is best for the world, best for life, best for people. And so that's why you see all these major movements, they're doing the exact opposite of what the rhetoric is. It's just a way to get people through these abstract concepts. So how does that relate to Orthodox theology? Well, again, we have the energy essence distinction. We have a theology that begins with person, a theology of personhood. Then we get into the operations of each person. Then we get into, again, the essence of what God is. The majority of world religions get into Buddhism, get into Hermeticism, get into Catholicism, get into paganistic ideas. The way in which they're going to start their theology is always going to be with an essentialist claim. They're going to claim what the essence of God is. What is God? Well, God is oneness. Well, what is God? God is love. And we do that to a degree, but as Orthodox theology, if we're going to talk about a theology on a debating level, we would never begin there, where the majority of worldviews begin there. The beginning of the paradigm, the beginning of the worldview is claiming what God is. And so we don't do that. We say that his essence is transcendent, and then we know what God is through the revelation of Scripture.
Wow.
And so it's through Scripture that then we know what the essence is, but we could never know the essence. We can't just observe nature and know what God is.
Right.
Because God, by definition, is totally transcendent. And so then the whole theology, the New Age theology, the pagan theology, that no, you just observe nature, and that is, you can see how that falls flat. Because then if God is nature, if God is universe, how did the universe come into existence? Something can't create itself. And then people say, well, that's true about your God. And then we would say, no. Because God, by definition, doesn't have a beginning point. The universe, based on your own assumptions, has a beginning point. You yourself say you believe in the Big Bang. That has a beginning point. That can't be God. That can't be conscious. That can't be what's giving you your blessings. You need to stop thinking the universe. The universe isn't doing anything. The universe has to have a beginning point. Therefore, the universe is not infinite, and it's not eternal, and that's not God.
Right. Wow. Dang, man, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's great. And I guess I had shout out to your exclusive members content.
Yes.
Recently signed up, loving it. And you had a conversation with Dylan on there where you talked about the dialectic of the Eucharist,
mm-hmm.
Where you had mentioned that like Catholics kind of just say, "Oh, we know what we just say it's the body and blood of Christ," right? Whereas you said the Orthodox take a different stance there on the Eucharist. It's because of dialectics, right?
I'm not remembering exactly what I was talking about with Dylan in that.
No.
I apologize. It's just so many conversations have occurred since then. I wish I was following. I don't exactly remember. I know that like one of the big differences between us and the Catholics is the whole concept of transubstantiation in regards to the Eucharist and how it becomes the body and blood.
Okay, gotcha.
So and then the whole dialectical thing is the way in which Orthodox theology works, and this is one of the really beautiful the dimensions of why it's so beautiful. When I say beautiful, I mean intellectually it's so beautiful, is the way it begins to collapse dialectics. And so we see obvious dialectic, man and God, right? Two separate things, God transcendent, man created. And in Orthodox theology, again, what do we have? We have one of three persons, all the same essence, becoming both fully God and fully man, collapsing a dialectic. What do we see? Another dialectic, life and death, obvious dialectic, right? Well, what do we see in our theology? We have the source of life dying to kill death. Collapse of dialectics, right?
Yep.
Where, as opposed to most that is called atonement theology. So in most forms of Christianity, then they believe in what's called penal substitution, that the whole reason why Christ had to die on the cross is because God was so angry with creation, he had to have a sacrifice that was so large to suffice his anger. And the only thing large enough to suffice his anger would be his own son. And that's why then Christ had to incarnate and die on the cross. Orthodox theology says, no, that's nonsense. Yes, there is a dimension of that. Yes, Christ does die to redeem us because of our transgressions. But the point of the cross is to die, to go into death and defeat death itself. Because based on the theology, Satan was given dominion of death. Death is sin. Sin is the opposite of God's will. The first person to go against God's will is an angel called Lucifer, who decides he wants to be God. So then Lucifer falls, becomes Satan. The original sin then, the origin of all sin is creation thinking itself as creator. That's what Lucifer did. Lucifer's created. He's an angel. He wanted to become the creator. That's what we're seeing with transhumanism. That's what we're seeing with the technocracy and the oligarchs from Silicon Valley right now. All these people live in a magical worldview where they are creator. They are God. And that's the original sin from our theology. So that's actually, again, how we even have a understanding of evil, is that evil doesn't exist. What we would call it, evil doesn't have what we would consider a positive existence. Right? People always talk about the fight of good and evil. Well, in our theology, in Orthodox theology, we don't have that problem, because evil is just wrapped up with, it doesn't have a positive existence. And evil is only a term to describe the opposition to God's will. So evil then is something that can only occur from creatures that have free will, creatures that can choose the opposite of God's will. Evil then isn't this thing out there that's battling. Evil is the entities with free will choosing to do the opposite of God's will, because God, by definition, being God, and God's will, by definition, is perfect and is bringing all things into perfect harmony. And so as soon as we go in opposition to his will, we can only create disharmony. And that's evil. And that's what evil is.
Wow. Yeah. Do Orthodox people think that evil is the absence of good? Like how darkness is just the absence of light?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So again, that's why it doesn't have a positive existence. Just like a shadow, it doesn't have a positive existence. It has a negative existence, right? Shadows exist in the absence of light. Same thing with evil. Evil is the absence of God, only by definition of God's will. But evil isn't a thing out there. It's just a choice in opposition to God's will. And then there's one entity that's created who reigns over basically the realm of the fallen, of people who choosing not to do God's will. And that is Satan. That's our theology of Satan. That's the devil. That's the ruler of this world who can give you whatever it is that you want.
Right. Wow. Oh man, you're blowing my mind here. Yeah, some heady stuff that I'm looking forward to getting into, man.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, brother, thanks.
DPH, thank you so much, man.
Hey, no problem at all, brother. Thank you so much for the call. Great combo. God bless you and your family, man. Hope the travels to North Carolina go well. And again, if you guys get there, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put feelers out for how many ortho bros and sisters I know in North Carolina, and potentially you guys can make connections. Because the nice thing about much of the Orthodox community is everybody's family oriented or already have children, so potentially good friends to meet on your guys' first initial move. So stay in touch, man. We'll have to keep going back and forth.
Absolutely, man. Take care. Have a good night.
Yeah, you as well. God bless.
God bless.
All right. Wow, that was a great call. That was our second caller with Poker Bear. That was great. So I think the next caller we have is Ray the Musician. So Ray, I'm gonna. Oh, and he's in the chat right now. DPH, clip that whole thing. That was amazing. Will do, Ray. Hey, Ray, I'm gonna call you right now, brother. I'm calling Ray the Musician on Instagram right now. See if he can. Here he is.
Hello?
Hey, brother. What's going on, man?
I'm doing fine, man. Sorry, I'm eating right now, so.
Hey, I didn't mean to catch you. It's funny, things tend to work like that. I didn't mean to catch you at a bad time.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Hey, that last call was amazing. You got to clip that, man.
All right, will do. I just
beautiful.
I just read your comment. I just saw. Well, thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's a few things I wanted to go over. I wanted to first kind of somewhat humble brag in the sense that today I got baptized and chrismated. Praise the Lord.
Oh wow, brother! Congratulations. Yeah. Amen to that. Glory to God.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, everybody in the chat, I'm sure, is going to be celebrating that. That's awesome, brother. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Welcome home. That's what everybody said to me when I got chrismated.
Oh, yeah.
It's like everybody says, welcome home.
Oh, yeah, man. I honestly, I was about to jump out of my car driving home, dude.
Yeah.
It's just so much energy and excitement.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, man. And what I wanted to ask you first is that before you were chrismated, you were inquiring for like a year or two, I believe, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it was 11/11/18 that I knew I eventually was going to become Orthodox.
Uh-huh.
But I had spent, like I said, I took that class in the spring, and I started to go to churches, different churches. I went to some Dominican Catholic churches, some trad Catholic stuff, and I went to some more red-pilled Protestant stuff, and then I kept going to Orthodox. And when I went to Holy Virgin Cathedral in San Francisco, basically was the done deal. I had never been in a place that was so beautiful, and then just lighting candles and just praying in there. It was like, so then the understanding of why Orthodox theology, that became later from mostly consuming a lot of Jay Dyer.
Yeah, it's usually where you start, right?
Right. Well, I had read, I feel like I was privileged because I took that course, so I had the language, I had the lexicon to like understand Orthodoxy, and I had a little bit of a philosophy background. So then diving into Dyer, I just felt like it was a catalyst. It just it just threw me so fast that, and I think that's why people are surprised how recent I became Orthodox and how much I talk about and like how much I know about it versus how recent I am to become one. It's because of all the reading and the sort of background I had. I feel really privileged for that. I think it's God's providence. I just feel so thankful.
Yeah, man, no doubt. I mean, honestly, you've helped me with your videos and stuff, man. So great, glory to God,
brother.
Great credit to you, man. Yeah, man. And so the reason I ask is because I feel like, so you were like
in social media during that time before in 2019, 2018, and in, I guess, the orthosphere. I guess you could say the orthosphere. But have you noticed like a surgence of more orthodox-minded people and content? Because I felt like I was because I decided to be orthodox last year, June, and I felt like there was like a great influx, even though I never participated in any of the ortho groups beforehand. I felt like there was like a big community that just grew.
Yeah.
Is that true? Do you think 2020 it really grew?
I do. I really do, brother. I started the channel, like I said, in August of 19. I mean, I actually had started it before that, months before that, and I had made some videos, but not like thinking I'm gonna be serious about this and I'm gonna start doing it regularly. But I swear, I've said this to multiple people. I feel like 2020, just the amount of people that reached out to me, especially from the psychedelic sphere. I mean, I know that that's kind of what I talk about, and that was my experience, but I've had so many people reach out to me that was in New Age, spiritual but not religious, or into psychedelics within the last year, and somehow they've either come to Christianity, or the majority of them say now they're looking into orthodoxy, or now they're talking with a priest about becoming a catechumen or something like that. It's just like, wow, that I think it's obvious that the Holy Spirit is at work, because what's amazing, as the first caller Lawson was highlighting, is how many similarities there are amongst so many people's journeys, even though within our local context, we might not know anybody that think like us, like, wherever you're at, maybe your family, your friends, none of them actually understand all this orthodox stuff or what you're seeing or what you're going through. But then you go online and there's this whole community of people that have gone through these experiences, that have gone down these rabbit holes, and somehow have come to the most orthodox traditional form of Christianity and say, no, this is actually the truth right here, guys.
Yeah, man. Like, what's so crazy? Like, so when I was inquiring, I learned that too. About 3 of my other friends are inquiring. 2 of them are still inquiring. One of them, we kind of had the journey together where I'm helping him out. He's asking questions, and he's heading towards the orthodox path. And like, when I made my announcement, when I told people like on my social medias I got baptized, one of my friends who I recently met said that he's on the train too. He's on board. Tell me, how do I get baptized? So it's just like, wow, it's
right?
Just, like I can't fathom it, man. And also, so it's really really telling thing that I come and call in tonight, because I took the name of Gregory Palamas.
Oh, so, great name, bro.
And you explained his the energy essence, the energy essence distinction, like to a T, man. I don't think I need to read any more books anymore, man. But honestly, that was the thing that led me to go east instead of west.
Right.
Once I learned, Jay Dyer, as always, we gotta praise the Lord for
Jay. Yeah, amen to Jay Dyer and his work, man. Despite whatever people think. Yeah, despite whatever people think of him as a person, again, I like Jay. We're friends, so we're good buddies. But a lot of people have different opinions. This is what I didn't realize, the diversity of opinion of Jay Dyer within the Orthodox sphere until I started to promote content and stuff like that. It's weird. It's kind of weird, but thank God to him, man. Think of how many people, young men, who have found orthodoxy through an intellectual, sophisticated presentation of theology. And so, just reiterating what you said, thank God for Jay Dyer. I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going, brother, but I just want to give him props.
No, what's funny, to kind of continue that, I think the issue, I don't know if I'm going above my pay grade on this one, but I think the issue, not with Jay Dyer, but I think he has the similar issue to Rick and Morty fans. Like, they're crazy. I think his fans, man, they love him. So if you have any critique on him, they will attack you.
Of Dyer?
Yeah. That's what I've noticed. I guess it's a good thing, more or less. But man, like, people. I mean, yeah, man, people love him for good reason.
Right. Well, he's brought he's opened so many people's eyes that whatever unique personality dimension he has that some person doesn't like or does like. I don't think anybody, and that's what I get frustrated with when I hear clergy talk bad about Dyer. Maybe he said something you don't like, and that's fine. You can have that, but he's brought more people that I know of to the Orthodox faith in the most recent years that I don't understand how people can be so dismissive of what he's doing online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, so the reason why I did bring him up too is because he had a video talking about how the argument between Gregory Palamas and Barlaam, right? Oh, I should say Saint Gregory Palamas and Barlaam, and he talked about how Barlaam's how Saint Gregory told Barlaam that his worldview would lead to atheism. And then look what happened in the West.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The Renaissance, the Enlightenment. Come on. I mean, I don't need to go into the etymology with all that, right? The Enlightenment. Right. And then just the individual thought. And then now the rise of republics. It led to all of that. And the greatest, I think the worst thing that happened really with in the broader Christian worldview is the Protestant Reformation, right? And the East didn't really face any of that. East had their own issues, of course, but the East still remained, what Christ had established. So I thought, and then, I think that's the reason why I took his name. He was one of the biggest factors to let me, I think orthodoxy is the way to go.
Right. No, I love Palamas, and Subdeacon Mark and I have been wanting to do a stream on the triads for some time now, multiple months. We've never ended up doing it. We need to do that here in the near future, but we were going to read and go over the triads. But I totally agree with you, and I love what he says to Barlaam there, because it shows that, again, if you're going to take this stuff seriously, you have to find out what are the roots of all the errors in the society that we live in. And obviously it's tied to like Enlightenment theology and stuff like that. Or not theology, Enlightenment philosophy, the secularism, the emphasis on humanism, the emphasis on the reason, that I would trace that all the way back to the Great Schism. And that's where the beginning of progressivism is. That progress, in my definition, I've tried to define it in my streams, progress is progression away from God. And that's what they call progress. And so from that perspective, just take whatever Orthodox theology teaches and then just think of progress in opposition to that, and that's going to give you modern day globalism.
Yeah. Yeah, what really, the thing with orthodoxy, it really does challenge you, because I had to change my political worldview too,
Right.
And, and then, and look what America is. America is just an experiment of globalism. So.
Right. Well, and America is the biggest exporter of it, just due to the prominence that they attained in the late 19th and 20th century. But then, like all of Protestant nations, America's not just an exception. Most of them, I mean, it is to an exception. We have a unique history in regards to how the country was founded, but secularism, Protestant theology, it's extremely corrosive. And I almost wonder, again, based from a biblical worldview, Christ, God, and his providential will is always bringing things towards their more harmonious conclusions. And so we see Biden president and all this stuff, but I wonder if even the whole fractioning of Christendom, we're talking about the Great Schism, the Protestant Reformation, all this stuff. You can talk about scholasticism, all that stuff, all that journey, all the way to 2021. That crap! I just lost my thread. Where was I? We were talking.
It's all good, man. You've been saying a lot of good stuff. So
I know. I get.
It's hard
whenever I read a chat, right? I cannot read the chat and think at the same time. Every time I do that, I read a comment and I lose my thread. It's the worst thing. It's like my mind. I have to look away and I have to stay in my mind because then I can stay on track. But yeah, what the heck were we just talking about?
Oh man, I don't know. What does the chat say? What does the chat say? Oh man, because I was actually paying attention too, but then I actually forgot too.
I know. I read a freaking comment and totally lost what
Like
the heck I was talking about.
globalism, and then
Um.
uh,
Oh. We were talking about the sort of uniqueness, the American
yes.
context. But yeah. Anyway, I don't even remember what the heck I was talking about. But we were talking about America and secularism and all these different problems. Oh, I know where it is.
Yeah.
That God's providence, the reason for all the fractionation within Christendom. One of the things I think potentially it could be, is that all that rationalism and the materialism and all this stuff led to new forms of science and scientific investigation and technology and all this stuff that eventually led to DARPA and the internet, and eventually that leads to the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century to now. Look, what is it as a historical phenomenon that us Orthodox are a part of? Is that we're literally part of a historical phenomenon. For the first time in the world, Orthodoxy can be shared and discussed on a global scale, right? Orthodoxy didn't enter in America basically until the 20th century. So we had Catholicism and Protestantism, we had Buddhism, we had Hinduism here. But Orthodoxy went the other directions. As the world moved towards the West, Orthodoxy moved towards the East. And it took eventually the 20th century for Orthodoxy then to come to America. And then now it's like, what are we doing the first time? Like, think about the book of Revelation. Think about all the theology that was, interesting potentially, but it's an interesting, at least a thought experiment to see how maybe this is all providential, that somehow the internet blasts out the mask signal of orthodoxy, allowing those who maybe hadn't heard the word or received Christ to hear it before things historically get more dangerous. I'm not talking about in our lifetime, I'm talking about multiple lifetimes. I'm not one to think that we're in the book of Revelation is going to happen in our lifetime. I wouldn't be surprised in the century or the next century, but I don't believe, some people get way too apocalyptic. But when we think about the internet and the place of the role of the internet in maybe the next 100 years and how orthodoxy can spread, I mean, that's what I'm doing here. Most people I engage with who quote unquote Christians don't know what Eastern Orthodoxy is. So it's still, we're in the 21st century, and informed people who even call themselves Christians don't even know what exactly that is. So it's new, it's novel, and we have a real opportunity to provide people with what they're looking for. Deeper meaning, a connection, a transcendent meaning, connection back to God, and then a true theology. And then with apologetics, we can defend ourselves. So I think we, as a historical and a point in history, are unique within the historical church as well, that we can get more converts. We can be apostles on the internet.
Yeah. I think what really gives us a big advantage, pretty much like that whole segment of you talking about the energy and essence energy distinction, what Protestants, at least in America, the Protestants, their theology is based from Roman Catholicism. So it's relatable. So the moment they hear how Eastern Orthodoxy works, it's like they get their mind blown, like, oh, so that's how it is, or it's like a new thing they might have to think over. That's our theology, like Roman Catholics, they could probably still read like William Lane Craig and, still accept some of the things, I guess so. But the Eastern Orthodoxy just has a much more different view, which is, with, the essence energy distinction, which, is so, and I think with the surgence of Orthodox content, I guess all this secularization is like really pushing people to find like they're spiritually hungry. It has to be it.
Right.
Because, that's the reason why, so my quick story, I grew up Pentecostal, became atheist at 21. And last year, 29, I came back to Christ. And then I learned about the Orthodox Church. And then I told you earlier, like about 3 other of my friends were inquiring. And my friend just now is just like, deciding, I want to be part of it too. Like this whole secularization, they have all the pseudo type stuff that the Orthodox Church provides, confessors, they have therapists. We have confession with the priest. They have I just had some other examples, but like they like not to kind of be funny about it, but they have like no nut November, right? But
Right.
we have like celibacy within our church.
Right.
We have the monastic life. Our view of celibacy is like I learned how like monasticism and matrimony are one and the same. They're two paths to reach God. And so the world has all these pseudo forms of trying to find what logos is.
Right.
But then the Orthodox theology, I think, takes the void away from their heart and fills in that void with the logos.
Agreed.
If that makes sense.
No, that's beautifully said. And I totally agree with you that the monastic life of celibacy and the sexual life of marriage are two ways to lead back to God. And I totally agree with you and how Orthodoxy, again, provides logos. It provides the right orientation, the right order, and ability to perceive the world. I think that's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you talked about, I think in the first call, you guys talked about how, like, I guess how to reach people, right? How to I guess, do so many apologetics to people, I believe. I forgot.
Well, the first one, Lawson, we were talking a lot about the Jordan Peterson stream.
Oh, yeah. So maybe it was...
the second one. We went on for a minute with Poker Bear. He was the psychedelic guy out in Boulder, Colorado, moving to North Carolina. Go ahead.
But I think, I guess a little apologetics tip for anyone who's interested. What helped me to join the Orthodox Church is that me being atheist for the past 8 years beforehand, I didn't have all that extra theology in my mind. I still had the understanding. I knew what the Trinity was. I knew who God was. Jesus Christ. I knew all that stuff. But I think me not having that deadbeat different theology was what really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. From what I've always noticed when you argue with people, you really have to really, I guess, attack's not the right word, but I guess you have to really explain why their theology is man-made while ours is, from God. Because honestly, the easy thing in this case, what made me change easily was that I learned that my worldview was just 500 years old, about Christianity. And then I learned that Christ established the church. But, I tell that to some people from time to time, and they're just like, what does that mean? Until I try to attack, well, I'm trying not to use the word attack, until I try to, I guess, counter something that they're really so attached to, which is maybe theology. In some cases, definitely the sola scriptura thing. You combat them with other Bible verses that support you. So
right.
I wanted just to mention that if anyone's having trouble, because that's what I've been experiencing for the past few weeks. No, I'm not trying to be a big major apologetics, but
right.
You're bound to have an argument with somebody,
right? And
or a friendly discussion,
right? I don't obviously on my channel get too much into the internal Christian dynamics. I had Jay on to blow out Reformed theology for me because he could do it way better than I could. But yeah, I think the debate helps one learn more about their own faith. That the debate forces you, because eventually questions come up that you're not going to know the answer to, and you may dismiss or whatever, but afterwards the debate, you're going to be forced then to address whatever it is you don't know about, and that's ultimately going to grow yourself. And that's why I think then Jay being so competitive and wanting to debate is so beneficial, even though people, I hate watching the debates, they never get to the point, or I want to learn about theology, I don't want to watch a debate. That's not the point. The point of the debate is to show objections. It's to say, okay, here's my thesis, this is your thesis, give me your best objection that I can't counter. And you then see that a lot of the objections that people think are strong are incredibly weak and make no sense. Like they're not, they're not that strong. The strongest critique, I think, would be to criticize the transcendental, even though I would disagree, but it would be, if you actually were following along, it would be to criticize the form of the transcendental argument. Although I ultimately disagree, and that's why Jay then reverts to everybody has a paradigm, and so it depends on where you start your paradigm. And we just start our paradigm with God. But the only legitimate thing, that the critique that I think is legitimate, would be like, oh, well, you're having to presume God for your worldview. And then we would say, yeah. And then they would say, okay, well, I'm just presuming logic, or I'm just presuming morality. And then you say, okay, but I'm only presuming one thing, and then I can give a philosophical justification for these other things, where you're presuming thousands of different things with no foundation to unify all those.
Yeah, you know what's funny, man? Like I didn't like philosophy at all before. I still kind of don't, but really, what? 'Cause, I mean, in the end, to me, I think philosophy is just, in the end, at the very end, everything is rooted in philosophy, I guess. You know, but like in the end, it ends up with just people wanting to smell their own farts, you know. But that's another story for another day. But what I'm trying to say is that what's so cool about orthodoxy just made me really, like what I mentioned, it made me change my worldview a lot with politics, and then with philosophy. Like I really got interested in philosophy a lot more when it came to Orthodox theology. So, it's just, you're always learning something. You're always learning how to, express your faith more. You're always learning how to do apologetics better. You're always learning how to become better and stronger with God. So, I mean, I love orthodoxy, man.
Right, me too. Agreed.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, man. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's it for me. I got nothing else left.
Okay. Well, brother, I appreciate you calling in. God bless you and yours. What'd you do for New Year's? Are you a married man, by the way?
Not at all.
No,
That's
you're
far
single?
From my mind. Yeah, man, that's far from my mind right now.
Okay, I feel you.
Yeah.
Feel you. We're all in different places. I was just curious. Orthodoxy is a family-oriented thing, so I was just curious.
The reason first is just, I'm just in that mindset. I got to fix myself first before I want to be with anyone else,
Right? No,
but
absolutely.
If I find someone along the way, if I find a woman along the way, that's even better, So.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel you. Well, God bless to you and your journey, man. Congratulations again. Behalf
Thank
on
you, man.
me and the rest of the chat, everybody was telling you congratulations on.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch this again. This has been a great show, man. So I gotta rewatch this stream again.
Well, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much for your support again. And God bless you and your journey. Welcome home. And we'll have to talk again soon, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you, man.
All right, no problem. Take it easy, brother. Peace.
Okay.
All right. Rated musician, guys, we are on fire tonight with the calls. Let me see if anybody else is willing to call in right now. Oh yeah, we got a few. All right, we got a few coming on. We're gonna hit up. Let's see who's next. So Panos, he's on deck. Levi Heckman just hit me up. So we're gonna reach out to Levi real quick. Call him. See if he can answer. Sometimes people don't have the app, or however they're activating or reaching me through Messenger, and sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm contacting him, and it doesn't look like it's connecting. He may not have the app. So let me say, if he wants, he can just send me his phone number. I can just call him. So, Levi, I just sent you. Oh, here it is. Here he comes. Hello? Levi? Hey, brother. Make sure your microphone's
Hello?
on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. What's going on, brother?
Oh, not too much. Just cruised over. Me and my brother. So my brother met this particular friend in kindergarten, and we're still kicking it to this day. That was close to 20 years ago now.
Oh, wow. Well, heck yeah. So you guys are all
man.
chilling tonight on Friday night?
Yes, sir. Yeah, just having a beer right now and cooking some steaks. Got a New York strip and then some
Ooh.
vegetables and stuff.
I love it. That sounds like a great night.
Yeah.
I just had my
Yeah, trying
sirloin. I had mine sirloin before I came on the stream.
I like it, my man. What would you cook it on? Like a flat top or a skillet or?
I actually have an indoor grill called a Ninja, and that's how I cook most of my meat.
Nice.
But yeah, what's going on, brother? You got any
No,
questions
not
or
too much,
topics you want
man.
to
Just,
chat about?
Question, but it's like just a more of a personal question.
Yeah,
but
sure.
First, just wanted to say how much I appreciate all the content you put out, and it's high quality stuff, man. Like it's hard to find just good Christian wholesome. Like I've been re-listening to a lot of your old ones. Like yesterday, I re-listened to about the Christian gentleman, like reviving the Christian gentleman.
Yes, sir.
And so, dude, from the bottom of the heart, man, just like love the content. It's really helping with certain aspects of life, and just wanted to say how much, like, genuinely, I appreciate you and the YouTube channel you're cultivating, man. It's great, for real.
Oh, thank you so much, brother. It means a lot to me, man. I put a lot of effort into it, and I love that it has a positive impact and that other people appreciate it. And so thank you so much, brother. I really, as much as you appreciate what I do, I appreciate everybody who watches and everybody who gives me such positive feedback, man. It's like, what is better than me doing what I want to do, doing what I feel called to do, and then being so well received by the people I try to do it for that obviously it's like a dream come true. It doesn't make the money that I'm trying to get, so hopefully by the end of the year we'll be in a different position. But
it's not making the money yet,
right?
But no. But for real though, God's really blessed it, and that's how I know also too. You know, like you're in that right lane. Is like, I mean, there's always going to be negative feedback, but like you were saying, every call like I've listened to since you started taking call-ins, man, everybody's always been positive and on a real good. So to speak, I watched the Cymatic one the other day too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Cymatics. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That word always trips me up a little. So I grew up like my mom. It was always my mom. She never really like taught us deep in theology, but just kind of lived out the Christian life like with a lot of love. I saw her take care of other people when they needed it, and man, so that definitely sparked something inside. And then I always had a reverence for God. Like I never turned to atheism or anything, but just didn't have that like one-on-one personal relationship. Always respected the Bible. Like, if I ever saw one, I'd make sure that like a cup or like something else wasn't on top of it. You know what I mean? But
I feel you there.
Had and so I came around when I was, I believe 19. It was 2015. So I would have been like 19 turning 20. July 12th, that was like the day, really dedicated. It's like, all right, if I believe Jesus Christ is who he says he is, like I've got to do something with it, Right. I could go through my testimony video. But so right now I'm going to a Calvary Chapel church, and just through you and like Jay Dyer's stuff, Orthodoxy piqued my interest. Not that it piqued my interest, like I'm trying to buy it or anything.
No.
A lot of the arguments.
I didn't take it that way. Go ahead.
No. I just like to be articulate.
Right.
But, like a lot of the arguments for the validity of the historic faith and everything have like really sent me on a not like that crazy path, but just opened me up for the first time. Like, because my stepdad's from Alabama, and he's like an old Southern Baptist, doesn't like, the Pentecostal speaking in tongue things. But So I've grown up in Baptist. Like when I was truly converted in 2019, I was going to a Church of God. It was Pentecostal, but had some serious like spiritual things happen there. Went on a couple missions trips, and that was really where the heart of my faith grew. But like, you know, just I'm kind of heady in a lot of things, so I'll think about, you know, like I got into theology and things like that, and then like it's a guy's named Paul Washer. He's like a Protestant guy, but talking about sola scriptura and all these things. And so with Orthodoxy, it really piqued my interest. There's like hurdles I'm still having to like jump from Protestantism to Orthodoxy in my own mind,
Right.
and like would love to attend a liturgy, but like I you know, I know you didn't really go through that process, but like things with and I've heard the Orthodox argument for icons, not saying they're good or I believe them or anything like that, but just it's such a stark difference from when I was growing up. You know, as a kid, you're very impressionable. So it was like, you know, thou shalt not make a graven image. And so it's more just personal avenues I'm navigating right now, but just any like general advice on what to do from here on out, because, you know, I've looked at Orthodoxy and, you know, as my stepdad was a Baptist, so like always preach against the Catholic Church type deal. But I'm of age now and open to the truth wherever it may lead, you know.
Well, that I tell you, man, that's all that matters, and that I don't need to ultimately convince you. I mean, I will try. I'll do my best, but my point is with the spirit that with the disposition you described yourself as having, as at this point, recognizing that what you're looking for is God, you're looking for the truth, and wherever that may take you, you will go. That if you're sincere about that, the Holy Spirit will lead you, and I believe He will lead you to the Orthodox Church. And so in regards to the couple lines that you mentioned, we don't need to go through the entirety of Orthodox objections to Protestantism. I do want to start by saying I did an entire stream with Jay Dyer on Reformed theology, if that would be useful, first of all. So Jay Dyer spent basically like 2.5 hours just demolishing what's called Reformed theology, which is this Reformation theology. Reformed theology is just Protestant. Okay. So I don't know where you're at. So I just, and so that's a great stream if you want to see a nuanced sort of deconstruction of why Protestantism is internally contradictory in a multitude of ways. That's a great stream. In regards to iconography, the premise of the objection, right, of graven images is, do we as Orthodox worship the icon, right? Because for us to be guilty of what's being charged, you're saying that we worship the icon at a level equating it with God. Is that what? I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm saying the premise of the question is already assuming that, and that's the problem. Yeah. So I'm saying that by framing the question that way, it assumes that premise, which we don't worship the icon. We venerate through the icon. The icons are windows that allow us to venerate God through them. We don't worship icons. And that's a Protestant, it's a Protestant misunderstanding. And this is because Protestantism in Reformed theology, you know, take Calvin, for example, begins to make it more austere. They want to do away with the aesthetics because they wanted to be in opposition to Catholicism, which had statues and all these aesthetics and this immaculate architecture that, you know, the Church of England adopts some of that. But generally speaking, with Protestantism, they worship inside of an office building. You know, there's not a whole lot of aesthetics to the experience. And that's why there's not a whole lot of spiritual experience within Protestantism. That's why then you get Pentecostalism, which is the exact opposite. It's not so much focused on dogmatic or systematic theology. It's focused on the experiential dimension. And I think that's also why psychedelics become so successful and prominent within in Protestant nations. Not that they aren't generally speaking, but more so in Protestant nations, because it's offering what is perceived to be a very real spiritual experience that isn't attainable inside the church. But if your
Right.
church is a liturgy, if it's an Orthodox church, and say it's a beautiful cathedral, there is such a phenomenological dimension. There's such an experiential dimension to the faith that is fulfilled. The incense, the frankincense when you enter into the church, the vividness of the colors and the icons, not even getting into the intricacies and the sophistication of the theology, but just the senses, right? When you enter into an Orthodox worship, all the senses are activated. Are all the senses activated in a Protestant worship? And so, not that you need to answer these questions, but I'm just saying that these things are, and then you can look, well, how did the original Christians worship? And so Protestantism, fundamentally, to me, the most fundamental contradiction, that if you just want to cut to the chase, you don't want to deal with all the different intricate arguments, is Protestantism assumes the validity of the early church in regards to the creation of Scripture, and then negates the validity of the church with everything else. And so how does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Because like when I heard, it was either in one of your streams or Jay's, like when they brought that up, I had never heard that argument before. And it's like, the Holy Spirit guiding us in all truth. Like if that, like that's true. And so that really started me on this path of not seeking to convert, but like open to it and wanting to learn more,
Right.
pique my interest, so to speak.
Right. Nick had a great suggestion for you in the chat. He said you should read Rock and Sand by Father Josiah Trenum. Are you familiar with Father Josiah Trenum?
Yep. Yeah, I've been watching his YouTube channel.
Okay, so he has a book. I don't know if have you heard of Rock and Sand?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what it's about, but I think I've seen it on one or two
well,
of
I'll
his
tell you
videos.
I'll tell you what it's about real quick, and maybe you'd want to get it. Father Josiah Trenum was in seminary to become a pastor. He was Protestant, and
he
was
under R.C. Sproul or something, right?
Yeah, and it was through all those studies where eventually he becomes Orthodox, and so he wrote a book called Rock and Sand, discussing the errors of Protestantism and how they built a house on sand as opposed to the house that's built on rock in Orthodoxy. So he gives a very systematic approach as to why and how he left Protestantism and how Orthodoxy, fills in a lot of the voids present within Protestantism. So that might be an interesting book to hit more directly on the Protestant stuff that maybe will build bridges for even your father.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's something I'll definitely check out. And right now, so I live in Florida.
Oh, nice.
And
lucky you.
I live in. What's that?
I said lucky you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you may or may not remember. I commented on one of the YouTube videos the other week, saying how my mom just had breast cancer. My stepdad has the bone cancer. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, brother.
So, yeah, but
prayers for your parents, man.
So, yeah, I appreciate it. I've been praying for your mom too.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Yeah, that's hard. So just know you're not alone.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I will certainly keep your parents in my prayers as well, because it's tough to live with people that are going through that stuff.
Yeah, and before I bought my house, I was living at my parents' kind of same situation with you, helping them out, like taking care of the yard, and I'm starting to get back into that, like cleaning the house for them and stuff. But sorry, a little side tangent, but just wanted to throw that out there. But so right now, I'm living in a county that voted, 85% Trump. It's pretty conservative, and so I go to a pretty big church. It's a Calvary Chapel, Protestant, whatever, but it's pretty lax on the masked stuff, dude. There's probably 200 people in there, and I'd say of the 200, maybe 15 to 20 of them had masks on, and so it's been I feel it's really been like a safe haven. You go there, you look forward. You don't have to engage with all the lies of the mask stuff in the supermarkets and all. You know what I mean? And so, but I say that to say I would like to check out the Orthodox churches I've got 2 just to the south of me, and so I just gotta check them out and see. But
Well,
I
would say you may want to check with because unfortunately, not all Orthodox churches are real based on all the math stuff. It depends on each parish is different, and so I'm very fortunate. My parish has made an exception for myself, so I do not wear one. But that is the only exception I have in Indianapolis area. So there's multiple churches within Indianapolis. From my understanding, all of them require you to wear a mask.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and so from just the word on the street in regard to the orthosphere, ROCOR has by far and away been the best in regards to not mandating masks for people to worship God. So you don't actually have to cover your face and the unique dimension of your own personhood to worship the creator who created it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But I do think so that's why I say that, in that if you're going to reach out, contact what parish you're going to, ask them about their mask requirements, and also if you have a ROCOR church that's in a closer vicinity, I would imagine they would probably be the most lax on that stuff. So you may find home there. But ROCOR, but you can find parishes and all. You can find, the Greek church in America tends to be pretty cucked, but you can find great Greek parishes. So it's not just, you can't base it on each jurisdiction. It's each parish. Yeah. And the priest.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I finished. It's just the parish and the priest. So you just have to take it one at a time, but.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it's like the same thing within the Protestant realm, like you can go to a primitive Baptist church and, they're preaching against the masks. And then you go to the United Church of Christ down the street and the pastor's a woman and they're like, supporting gay marriage.
Right. No, it's exactly. It's crazy. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the state that we're in as Orthodox in America. But hopefully things get better. I imagine many of this mask stuff may start going away now that Biden's president. I don't know. It may get worse. Who knows? Overall, it's going to get worse, but I wouldn't be surprised if things get way more calm now that they have full reign. Because if you are wanting to pass legislation that's actually contrary to most people in this country, you'd want the opposite of the Trump phenomenon. You wouldn't want all the eyes on Washington.
Exactly.
So I think it's going to go back to like a Bush, business as usual, where nobody really focuses on politics anymore, and that way they can pass all the bills that they want that are going to enslave us even further. So I imagine things are going to, in the name of control, we're actually going to get more calmness.
Yeah, but that's a good. Wow, yeah, I've never really looked at it like that. Yeah, that's a pretty valid point, man.
It's possible. We'll find out. We'll find out, but it's just a thought.
Yeah.
But
Logos is rising, brother.
It is. It certainly is.
And so, dude, like, what an honor to live in these times,
Clearly, again, you're chosen. God chose all of us to be here right now. So we obviously have some role to play, whether that's a role for our families, whether that's a role for the families we will create, whether that's a role for society, who knows what exactly our purpose is. That's what I think a lot of us should be trying to figure that out one way or another, through prayer and just self-exploration, like get serious about improving oneself.
Yeah. Amen to that, brother. Well,
so
I don't want to take too much.
Yeah, no
more
problem,
of your
man.
time,
Thanks so much for
really
calling. Yeah, no problem, man. Next time I have a call-in show or whatever, you'll have to stop in, or feel free to reach out whenever, man. If you got thoughts or questions or just want to say something, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I plan on becoming a member of the website. I'm canceling a couple other memberships, and as soon as that's done, I'll be in there. But
great.
Yeah, just another big thank you, and I'll talk to you later, brother.
Thank you so much, man. God bless you and yours. Take it easy.
All right, man.
Bye. Awesome. Another great call. Thank you, Levi, for that, brother. This was a great combo. Looks like we got Brandon. I'm sorry, is going to be. I'm going to give him a ring real quick. I'll message him, see if he's there. So great conversations tonight. I love the calls, man. I love talking to everybody. Oh, Ephraim, what's up, brother? Welcome. Okay, well, here's Brandon. Let's give him a ring real quick. What up, Brandon? What's going on, brother?
Yo, what's up, man? How's it going?
Pretty good, bro. How are you?
Doing well. Just watching the stream, hanging out.
What are you up to Friday night?
I was gonna read some of my like catechism, just like the catechism I got from. So I joined a local row corps parish.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so I was planning on reading some of that, but then I just ended up on YouTube watching you and Jay Dyer's stream.
Oh, Jay's streaming right now?
He streamed earlier. He had that interview yesterday with the guy who was talking about his like alien theories.
Right.
And so I felt like he probably thought that he needed to do a like follow-up stream and kind of clarify his alien perspective. I don't know if you caught that stream from last night, but
I missed it. I missed it. I didn't see any of it.
The Sean Stone guy, yeah, he had like theories of like where I don't know, man, like alien hybrid, like it was insane. Yeah.
Well, I'll check it out. No, I totally missed that. I'm out of the loop. I gotta check that out.
It was just hilarious watching Jay's face because Jay, I don't think, knew his position and didn't kind of expect the conversation to go there. So when this guy just starts like going off on what he thinks about aliens, Jay's like, wow. Like you could tell Jay's kind of like, wow.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm totally with Jay. I think aliens are fake, and I think that it's a way to further substantiate the sort of globalist takeover. And really, the way that I see it is like the mind control is to get people to buy into a paradigm that isn't true. So even if they disagree with like this detail or that detail, the entire paradigm isn't true. And so even though they debate amongst each other within the paradigm, it just keeps people like running a rat race. And so I think the aliens are going to be used to totally concoct the atheistic, evolutionary, dehumanizing globalist agenda that we are like inferior and that higher life is here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they use it for the basis to alter society in all these different ways, depopulate the planet in different ways. So I see it as a total tool of the governments, the global government.
Yeah, I mean, Jay talks about how they've literally written how they would use aliens to kind of undermine the Christian worldview.
Right.
And it is like the perfect threat if you were trying to enact a global government. It's like, right. Okay, the planet's being invaded. Like we have to, consolidate all of the national military. But yeah, that's not actually what I planned on.
No, dude, whatever, it's all good. Whatever you plan on asking.
It's fascinating, and it is, coming to light. Like there's been recent, like the article. I think Israel that was like claiming that they've had contact.
Of course, it's
and
Israel.
They're planning on disclosure. Yeah. But yeah, no. I agree with Jay and other church fathers that, I mean, what people would perceive to be aliens are probably demonic forces.
Yes, I agree. That's what I think. And it looks like Pano says the same thing. In the chat, he said aliens are demons and a fake psyop. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel ultimately they're probably demonic. And that's people's experience of them. I think most of the time it's just a total psyop by the government because the technology that they actually have, I think, is so far ahead that they just they are the quote unquote aliens, right? And I think really that's how they think of themselves when you think of the elite, is because of their evolutionary framework. They are the alien grays. They are the brainy people that are so advanced in society, right? They are a different order from us plebs, that they control and that they vaccinate and all this stuff. So it's almost like the whole alien is just a framework for the way the elite view themselves.
Yeah, well, they definitely serve, the demonic forces of this world.
Yeah, no question about that. Yeah,
So,
exactly. No question about that.
But yeah, that was wild, man. Check it out and check out his video from tonight, because he basically goes over what we just said.
Okay, yeah, I definitely will.
The Orthodox perspective.
Yeah, I definitely will.
I don't need to tell you to watch Jay Dyer. You already know. But yeah, actually, I had some other topics. One was homesteading.
Yeah.
That you've talked about.
Yep.
And kind of just the many layers that can be beneficial for us. I mean, even on the practical level of being more self-sufficient and being able to withstand breakdowns in society, which, very well could happen.
Right.
And then also the idea of like stewardship that's in the Bible, right, and having kind of that the homestead environment, I guess, or just the the setting of having that responsibility and being a steward over your your homestead, where you have to take care of the animals, the crops, your family, and I think that it's beneficial on a spiritual level and like a mental level. They're not just following all of this chaos and nonsense in the media and distracted by entertainment, but you're like focused on taking care of yourself and your family and serving God.
Right. Really back to the ways in which life are meaningful. It's like accomplishments are meaningful. So if you want to take your career, but the career is just to provide for your family. And so if you're providing by growing food, it's the same thing as if you were making $100,000, working for some corporation or whatever. That the meaning is what's important. And so I totally am with you that I think the homesteading, that we all see where things are going, and that obviously we live in a fallen world. Within that fallen world, we have a lot of fallen demonic entities that attain a lot of power. And we see what's going on in Britain and a lot of Europe and different nations regarding all the COVID lockdown measures, and can see how we are going to have to acquiesce or become complicit to that unless you can feed yourself. I mean, it comes down to like, what do you need to live? Can you do that without the system? And I would say 90% of us would say absolutely not. We can't, at least at this point in time. But that should be the realization that any Christian in 2020 should come to, is that the people who ultimately want you dead, and if this is like the movie They Live, and all of us actually have the sunglasses on and we can see what the signs really say, why would we want to be dependent on a system that we know is totally inverted and leads people to death? The only thing I think most of us should be wanting is to become more independent. Whatever it is, maybe you're an artist, maybe you do blacksmith, maybe you whatever. How can you take your skill and your talents, and how would that present itself in a traditional setting, and then start moving in that direction? Because in 10 years, I mean, like, I honestly personally think that the breakdown of the United States will happen before 2030. I have in my mind, in my heart, that's like, I have no doubt about that. And that's why I am like so anxious deep down to find somebody and to save enough money to buy my land. And then I don't care if I'm in a tent at that point. Like, I will figure it out to build a house or to build something, but it's just, I just want to get the land and own the land. Not that then the government can't come and take it with their tanks, or of course they could. But if there's any semblance of normal or whatever that is, at least if you just owned your land and just live there, I mean, To me, that's the only option. I really just don't see how, looking forward in one's life for 20 to 30 years, what other direction you'd want to go. I mean, if you're an Orthodox Christian or you're just a traditional Christian, like, you're going to be part of the system. You're going to go work for the U.S. government. You're going to go work for Coca-Cola. Like, what? You're going to work for the EU? I mean, what other options are there? Figure out what your skill is and monetize from that by the people who would consume whatever your skill is. That was my mindset. That's what I'm trying to do with my stuff. My skill, I think, is reading and taking in information and trying to repackage that and present that in a way that connects different dots. So if that's my skill, what I want to do then in today's context is get funded by the people who actually consume that. So that's why I push my website so much, because that's then how I'm going to create a business in which I actually make money and have a real business and a lifestyle based on what my skill is, what I do. But that could be anything. You could be a blacksmith, you can make knives, you could be a plumber, just a skill, a real skill. You could be a DJ. You have to have a skill. And then from that, figure out how to monetize it, and then figure out how that would fit in like a traditional setting. Like for me, if I lived in a traditional Orthodox community, I could be part of the educating system, right? I have a skill to offer, but we have to all figure out what is our skill, because people want to talk about building communities, which I know, shout out to Michael Sisko and Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, who are talking about that in Montana and West Virginia right now. But also, we don't want a bunch of Orthodox people to show up that don't have skills. Go home. It's like, you can't build a society. You can't build a community. You can't build without skills. Everybody needs, Kip was right in Napoleon Dynamite. Girls like guys with skills. So we all need skills. What's your skill? And I think that's as young men, that's what we should be thinking about, is finding different skills that could work at a traditional communal level, but also are somewhat practical. And maybe your skill isn't necessarily your passion, or maybe you have a nice job, whatever it is. I just think eventually we have to think more traditionally, and more traditionally means growing our own food and growing our own animals, killing our own animals, eating our own animals.
I think,
go ahead.
I think living on the homestead is a way to facilitate developing those skills, like just practical things.
Yep.
Like when you're living in a air conditioned environment and everything, we've become so specialized as like people, where everything is provided for us other than like our wage slave job. And so unless like you make the incentive to like go out and learn that stuff, it's not necessary. And so a lot of people just never develop the skills.
Right.
But that's what homesteading is. You can raise your family, you can teach your kids,
right.
All of the basics of life that previous generations did before maybe before maybe like the baby boomers.
Right. Exactly. No, I totally agree. And your skill may not even be. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. I was just saying, like you were mentioning that you do education. I kind of a content idea either for YouTube or your site, maybe. And there's similar stuff out there, but maybe like the life of the saints and going through certain saints and kind of like why we should know them. Like what were their contributions? What was it? What did they endure? Like what was their experience?
That's
I think.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually,
I'm a catechumen. I don't really know much about the saints. Like I have a lot to learn and stuff. So that's just like one thing.
I have a lot to learn as well, and that's a great project for me to learn more about the saints. Because
with series.
Yeah, because with what I do, I mean, I generally obviously tend to have an idea of what I'm going to talk about, but sometimes I'll do a topic that I'm not too familiar with that I have to spend hours of preparation for, but that means I have to know it before I can talk about it, which is something I like to do anyways. It's all about learning more. So it's like, we'll do a project on the saints. I don't know a whole lot about a bunch of saints, but that will force me to learn. And that sounds like a great project I'm sure you're not the only one. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea, actually.
Yeah. Hannah just mentioned, that's where I had seen it is, I don't even know how to say that, but there is like something that does like short documentaries, but they do like, edited video form, but I think it'd be interesting to do it in your format as well. And then people could even call in, or you could take questions about the saints.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
And then also, just like the basics of Orthodoxy, like why should we pray? Like it's such a simple question, but And I guess like people that have been in Orthodoxy might like take that kind of stuff for granted.
Right.
But I'm sure you'll find a bunch of ideas as you go. And then I also wanted to compliment and say your cymatics stream
Yeah.
from the other day. That was fascinating because before I was Orthodox, I'd always kind of been interested in like sacred geometry, the Fibonacci sequence, and the cymatics that you were talking about.
Right.
And that really, for me, like, was some of those powerful, I don't know if you want to say evidence of like a intelligent design.
Right.
And so it was just really cool to hear that in the framework of Orthodoxy that you were discussing.
Well, thanks, brother. Yeah, that was the whole point, is to show, because I also was wrapped up in a lot of that stuff when I was in the New Age. And then the whole point about really the Orthodox journey is a journey of all of us becoming way more serious about spirituality and things, which then eventually lead us down this path. And so it's like, well, let's take the critical tools that we use to discover Orthodoxy and then look back at all this New Age stuff. And what we see then is that it's not that we disprove cymatics or all this stuff. We see that actually it totally fits within our theology, and then we have a metaphysics to account for it. That how can the New Age, how can any worldview that believes God is the universe account for cymatics or these different things? Eventually it's going to break down. It's not going to make a whole lot of sense. And it's like, I had thought about all that stuff. I hadn't done a stream. I had put all that together when I did a stream on, or a video on fractal mathematics, sacred geometry, and logos. And then I knew I eventually wanted to do it. And then I just sitting around, I think like the day before that stream, and it just hit me. I was like, dude, I need to make a stream on like sound and cymatics and how that relates. And so that's why I just sat and I thought about it for about 3 hours and just laid out the outline for that entire video.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it gives credence to the idea of intelligent design, such a crude way of saying it, but
right, and it's loaded because of the
creation story.
Yeah, exactly.
Of God creating a world, because you just see and all of the matching patterns throughout of creation. So yeah, I really appreciated that stream. That was awesome.
Yeah, and
that was kind of it.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, and not just the matching patterns, because I think when you say that, it hints at the sort of geometric patterns, I think was what you're getting at, the sort of actual physical structured patterns within reality.
The fractal patterns.
Yeah, but look at the fractal, like abstract pattern of God speaking the world into existence, that God's words gave form to matter. And how, again, we see that same fractal representation, how man gives form to society through words. That's the basis of how we construct ourselves. So, again, reminiscent of the way God forms the world through matter. And then we see cymatics as a sort of science to show how sound vibrations moves and forms matter. And so it's right there. We see the same sort of fractal pattern on pattern on pattern, but in a totally different context. You see what I'm saying? Instead of the sacred geometry of like the circle of life or something like that, or the flower of life, all this different stuff, which then is built on top of each other, and we see a sort of fractal dimension within nature. There's also a sort of correspondential or fractal, if you will, a patterning, even within the abstracts of the theology, right? That God spoke the world into existence. That's what I find so beautiful. And so Buddhism talks about the primordial Om of the universe, right? A lot of pagan ideologies talk about, well, Hinduism also talks about Om being the fundamental sound of the universe. So we see then, in my opinion, logos spermaticos, seeds of logos, within all these other world religions who are also saying the sort of primordial force of the universe actually begins with sound. And our tradition says the same thing, but we have a place in which that sound comes from, right? How does Hinduism or Buddhism, where does the sound come from? Who's emanating the sound? Well, it's not. It's an abstract. It's just sound, right? But we actually have a God who's a person, and that person creates sound. And that's how we're made in the image. And you and I are persons, and we also speak words and create sounds. Because where does the sound come from?
Well, it's just like, vibrational energy.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Right.
But it is interesting because I feel like, apologetics for so long has kind of been on the more logic based, what I'm saying, which is obviously like valuable and true, like as Jay Dyer mostly does. But I feel like this generation now is like you, I guess, had some history in, and I was interested, like people are kind of like more spiritual nowadays. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's almost like kind of like saying, we're putting it in that framework of how like this doesn't, clash with Christianity. This actually is, basically what this is like evidence or justification of like our worldview.
Right. So we can actually explain why that's the case.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because even if you were to be a Buddhist, you said, "Oh well, I'm a Buddhist," and we also say Om's the primordial sound of the universe, and it gives shape to everything. And say, "Oh, okay." So there's a God then that creates. Well, no. Well, we don't really believe in it. And so it's like the whole thing starts to break down in terms of like, again, how do you account for this primordial sound that gives vibratory resonance to everything? Well, you're going to end up having to have a monotheistic God. Well, then that narrows the options within world religions pretty quickly, right? And even excludes the ones that are making the claim of the primordial sound. Not that their claim of the primordial sound is wrong. So, and then that's what I love about it, is that we can just eventually just continue that process and show, well, if what you're saying is true, then ultimately you're just agreeing with the Orthodox theological worldview.
Yep.
And then a lot of people just are like, what?
Well, heck yeah, man! I appreciate you taking calls.
Hey, no problem, brother. Yeah, I hope
call in and discuss.
Yeah, I hope.
Thanks other people want to. I'll do this again. I wish you well with Cotel. We are enjoying. No, I was kidding. But cool. God bless.
Yeah, God bless you, brother. God bless your longtime buddy and your brother. And hope you guys have a great weekend. And good luck to you and your guys' endeavors in 2021.
Alrighty. Take care.
Take it easy, bro. Peace. All right. Another great convo. Looks like, okay, looking at the messages that have come in here. Let's see what we got. Okay. I've got two people. I got Pano and Dave. Dave is available. Dave is there. So we got Dave, and then we're going to Pano, and I think that may wrap up the evening. We're already at 2.5 hours, guys. So let me call Dave real quick, and then if nobody else is interested, we're gonna hit up Pano and have a real grand finale to finish up tonight's stream and combos. Oh, and I got to go over super chats. So thank you very much who has donated a super chat. Come on, Dave. Hey, Dave, what's going on, bruh?
Hey.
Long time no talk, man. It's been about a week.
Yeah.
What are you up to tonight, man?
Oh, just resting. So, how about you?
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
Streaming right now. Probably gonna relax a little bit. Got some plans, some good plans this weekend. We'll be visiting a different city. So just really gonna be hanging out and relaxing. And I got to get up early in the morning and get out. So that's about it for me. Yourself? You got any fun plans this weekend?
Nothing out of the ordinary, really.
So what's going on, man? You got any topics, thoughts, questions you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got all sorts of stuff.
Let's hear it.
I mean, not that I'm, I think. Well, one question for you, I guess. Are you aware of Mo Monastery? Like, do you know anything about them?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay.
You want to tell me about it?
well, just I don't know a ton, but there's a guy named the Real Med White. I don't know if you know who
Oh
that
yeah,
is.
David the Real Medbite. He's a good
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, I'm friends with him.
Okay. Yeah, so he had a video. So Mull Monastery, they're a monastery in like Scotland or something like that. And I watched some of their videos. They have some good stuff, but there's also some kind of interesting stuff because the Real Medwite mentioned that, you know, they've got some kind of interesting things. Like, it seems like they're taking in a lot of money, and it's like a lot of it's not really being used for church purposes or whatever. And there's just some interesting thing. Yeah. And the priest, like, he seemed like he's got some really good stuff, and it was probably I'm guessing probably really good because it was church fathers stuff that he's just passing along. Not to say he's good or bad, I can't say, but he did have some kind of questionable things about just some kind of leftist stuff that I was like, it wasn't enough to make me like unsubscribe or anything, but I was just kind of like, But anyways, I just thought I'd ask about that. We don't have to talk about that anymore, but.
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar, and I didn't check out David's stream on that video, so I'm not too familiar with it. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. No, that's fine. Another thing, I know you've done a video on aesthetics. I haven't watched it, but that's one thing I've kind of been thinking about is, you know, a approach to philosophy and religion, just looking at beauty and aesthetics and almost judging all of those things just on that alone, and that leading somebody to orthodoxy, because I'm, you know, like I haven't been able to think of anything that rivals orthodoxy in the aesthetic and beauty of, you know, everything in it.
In regards to visual aesthetics, intellectual aesthetics, all of it.
But yeah, so
all of it.
Specifically, like the senses aesthetics. So
okay,
art and architecture. I mean, it covers other things too, but specifically those, I would say.
Right. No, I think, well, you know, to be honest, I think Islam has some nice aesthetics with the way that they use their sacred geometric patterns to use in their mosques and stuff like that to not show
right.
God. Now, I disagree generally with that because, well, that's a different conversation. But I think aesthetics, I think aesthetics are present within most world religions, right? But there is a unique dimension in the Orthodox context. Certainly within Christianity, I think it's far and above the most beautiful form of Christianity. I mean, really the only conversations between high church Anglican, Catholicism, and Orthodoxy. I mean, Protestantism is it even in the conversation in regards to the most beautiful forms of Christianity? So I do think the aesthetics, if a person is interested in that as an approach to religion, I think if you're interested in aesthetics, you're probably already a little bit more of an intellectual or heady individual than probably the average bear. Unless you're interested in like aesthetics or just the experience. You're not talking about the philosophy of aesthetics, but you're just like, oh wow, orthodoxy is so beautiful, I want to go there. For some women, you know, that's the thing. They get in there, they have a spiritual experience, they smell the incense, they see the beauty, and they like orthodoxy. That's the avenue that God uses for some people. But it sounded like what you were talking was more of a sort of deeper, reflective, philosophical understanding of aesthetics and seeing how that's then presented itself within orthodoxy. Am I right?
Yeah, and I'm going to make a statement which you can correct me on if it's not right, but I think it seems like it's kind of the manifestation of the energies of God, if I'm saying that right. And it's the most pure, like in Christianity, and you start to see it get more darkened with Catholicism and then Protestantism.
Right. Agree. I mean, and the aesthetics are what create sacred space. So again, I think one of the ways in which we see the degradation of Protestant nations is the space which is supposed to be sacred, the places which people worship, often Protestant churches, don't have that transcendent beauty. And so Orthodox churches, Catholic churches do have that transcendent beauty. They do have the proper ratios, again, the Fibonacci, the golden ratios, pi, phi, whatever, all that stuff, which then induces the sacred ratios, right? The sacred geometry induces sacred space, which induces, by definition, better aesthetics, and therefore better connections to the transcendent God. And so I do think that's are you interested in aesthetics as like an apologetic bridge for some people into orthodoxy?
Yeah, and also I think it's indicative of the both God and the philosophy. That's kind of the aesthetic is what's emanating out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's why in orthodoxy, that's why so many people just say you got to go to church, you got to go to liturgy, you got to go experience it. Because it is a lot more than just a rational theology like you'd find in most Protestant forms, where you just have to understand something and then make a proclamation of faith. And that's really the whole thing. You sing some hymns, you follow the praise band, and you listen to your pastor who's got his sleeves rolled up and his prison tats showing from before he was born again. And it's like, oh, that's not really traditional Christianity. It's not. It may be fun, it may be convenient and comfortable, but that's not the tradition that Christ and the apostles built. And that's why you got to go to an Orthodox church and see and feel and experience and hear, and it just resonates at a deeper level. And all that's beautiful. The music, I love that there's no instruments. Some people say, "Oh my God, you don't have an organ?" Or I couldn't imagine worshiping God without instruments. And it's like, no, it's the human voice. And again, back to cymatics, what's more beautiful than that? Right? If God's word gave form to the entire universe, the way we praise God is through our own words. So we give form to praise, we give form to worship through the same process that God gave form to the universe. And it's using our own voices. I think that's beautiful. Some people don't.
Yeah. And this is a little bit of a segue, but still kind of in the ballpark. So, in regards to Protestantism, it's kind of interesting. Depending on the church, you start to see the, pastors or whatever, they start to kind of dress like businessmen, which I think is really interesting. And I mean, you've got the whole tangent of, French Revolution being kind of financed by Protestant and Jewish bankers, but also, so I was at a church recently, and this was more of a kind of behind the scenes business meeting, let's say, kind of thing. And they were saying, the congregants are customers, and we're selling,
oh my gosh,
essentially we're selling a product.
Oh my gosh. Disgusting.
And I'm just like,
could you imagine Paul and the apostles hearing that? They are probably turning over their graves, but probably in the first time they've turned over in their graves. So they've probably been doing barrel rolls ever since the Great Schism.
Yeah, but it was just kind of like, and this is not I'm not saying that everything they do is bad and all that stuff.
No, not, and some of them are great believers. Some of them are really devout people, and they just have never been exposed to the full truth.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, it's kind of like, it makes you think of Jesus, making a whip of cords. It's like, are we just gonna have, money changes in the temple? Are we, we could start up a brothel. That would make it popular, right?
Yeah. A brothel for Christ.
I don't know. It's just
it's crazy, man. And you can see again, I think that it's tied. They naturally go together, that rhetoric from a Protestant point of view, because if you're familiar with Max Weber's work, the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, which is a great book, and I wanted to do a stream on. I need to go back over it. Very famous book in the work of sociology, in which he basically tries to show how Protestant theology led to the presuppositions of industrial capitalism, and and how those worldviews are going to go, or they're going to be synonymous. Now, he's writing this in the 18th century, or is it 18th or 19th? I think it's 19th century. I'm sorry. He's writing this in the 19th century.
Yeah.
But it's so accurate, because then from there, when you look at then all the Protestant nations, they are now the biggest perpetuators of globalism, which is that sort of industrial capitalistic framework that becomes globalism, because now they can just root manufacturing within China. And so it's still capitalism, quote unquote, because they're selling goods to people, but it's a whole monopolized structure in regards to making manufacturing being totally dependent. The goal of globalism is to put world manufacturing inside of China. And yeah, so I'm not. I'll just keep going rambling if I stop. So if I don't stop,
no, it's good. And I think another interesting thing is that, like, it's not really in terms of like the whole Enlightenment, like classical liberalism, and that's a whole other tangent. But what it actually, like, ultimately, like, what the elite don't actually want, like, the property rights and free markets. Like, they might pay lip service to that, but like what it actually amounts to is the crony capitalism, the corporatism.
Yep.
It's essentially the worship. It's not the worship of like a means to an end. It's a worship of the end in itself, the worship of wealth.
Right.
And
exactly. And that's why I always highlight that if anybody's ever played Monopoly, that you know how the game ends once everybody has monopolized. And it's like, well, how difficult is it to take the microcosm of Monopoly and then apply that at a macro scale to our society? And that's the game that whether we begin with socialism or end with monopolies, capitalistic monopolies, we're going to get to the same place. And ultimately that place is evil acquiring more and more power. So whether that's through the worship of greed and money, through the capitalistic monopoly, or that's outright political control and silence and all that stuff through the sort of communistic, capitalistic beginning point, right? You have to go through the revolution. And so that's where we're at right now. I mean, we are in the middle of a Marxist revolution in America. And I'm going to do a stream. I need more time to think about it, but I almost did it yesterday, but it would have just been rushed and I would have been upset with myself because it would have been as profound as I want. But I'm going to do a whole stream on the sort of the new rhetoric that we're hearing again with the Capitol and everything. I want to do a stream. I don't know how I'm going to tie it together, but it's going to be wrapping together concepts of magic, theories of language, brainwashing, manipulation, the whole NPC thing, and then the rhetoric that's now being deployed in regards to the Trump supporters at the Capitol. So think about this. This is one of the things I was thinking about. So think about this. All these people that are so upset with the Trump supporters that went into the Capitol building also believe, literally months earlier, that the American structure is systematically racist and disadvantages people based on the color of their skin. Well, who made those laws? Well, the people inside the Capitol building. So you're telling me that you believe in a worldview, if you're a BLM supporter, you believe in all these different systematic structures that are oppressive in our society that were created by the people inside the Capitol building and voted upon and passed. And then when people actually are angry at those people and protest at that place, look at how the masses, without even thinking, condemn them. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It just shows how the magic works, how easily people's minds are manipulated to perceive things in a totally different context than the way that they should be perceived.
Yeah, and that gets into, a lot of the left worships violence, and essentially, I mean, the U.S. state especially is this personification of violence. So they don't want to, go against that. It's really interesting because if you split the political spectrum, the left is actually the two female mindsets. And I actually argue, I'm going to start making videos too and stuff, is that the female mindset, the left actually never really has power. Like it's actually the kind of like neoliberal neoconservatives, who are actually they're on the right, but they're still left of center economically. But anyways, but it's all endpoint saying it's always men who are in power. Like there's even the argument that there's never actually been a matriarchal society because the men are always on the top. Like even if you have like the Ocasio-Cortezes,
right,
they're still lower level. You still got, it's kind of like the iron law of oligarchy, if you ever heard of that, like
right,
power concentrating in one person. It's like it always concentrates in the men. So yeah, but anyways.
right. So even though I'm agreeing with you that maybe literally the men still operate the main functionings of a society, in that a true monarchy where women and men's roles are inverted or the power structure is inverted, very rare. Though even within a goddess-centered worshiping tribal tradition, the men, like you're saying, they're still going to occupy most of what we would consider the traditional power. But I think what we're seeing with the left and how I use the masculine feminist dialectic is, the men, you're talking about AOC, the men may still occupy the majority of the power, but the way in which their disposition is towards creation is at a sort of archetypal level more towards creation itself. Like it's so if we take at a sort of archetypal level, we look at Adam and Eve. Adam is supposed to be looking up towards God, and the correct order of authority is that there's God, there's Adam, and then there's Eve, and then there's the animals. Not that Adam is superior to Eve. It's just the order of authority and how this stuff works. Where when what happens? Well, Eve listens to creation. Eve listens to the serpent. The serpent convinces Eve. Then Eve goes and tells Adam, and Adam then listens to Eve, and he eats from the same fallen, prideful original sin of the fruit, and we all fall once Adam eats from it. Well, the masculine form then, based on the biblical understanding, is that a man is supposed to be listening and directing one's attention towards God. The woman does the same thing towards the man, and we can't have our attention focused towards creation. And so that's then like the masculine, the patriarchal worldview. You see that the woman is, the man respects the woman subservient to the man, and there's a traditional nuclear family structure that's actually transcendently focused towards God. What we have with the left, though, yes, men still occupy physically men are still occupying the power. What we have is an inverted moral structure that's all about creation. It's all about the worship of creation, which was what I'm calling a sort of feminizing spirit. Even the way that materiality, right? If you look back into the etymological words related to matter, materia, Maria, marina, like water, matter, these are all typically embodied as feminine qualities. Matter is typically described as feminine. Gaia is the goddess of earth. So when we look at things that are more and more materialistic, tend to be framework, generally speaking, using archetypal structures, we call that more feminine.
Yeah, and actually this is really interesting too, because I think so the way I see it, essentially, you have a mostly male elite who's peddling the feminine mindset and religion to the lower class, but also they're also involved in all these religious movements or cults or whatever that are feminine, essentially, satanic worship, things like that.
Yes.
And I think the devil is kind of a common, he's essentially, from my understanding, androgynous, but more so understood. He has the hyper rationality of the male, but also I think even probably more dominant is the emotional, irrational of the female trying to fight God. I mean, it's how irrational and stupid that is.
And that's why
I think that's
agreeing with exactly what you're saying. That's why I always envision Satan as a homosexual man.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, it's
because you see
yeah, I
how
can
even
see how you're saying that.
at a symbolic level, it fits in so many different ways in regards to the sterility
Yeah.
of the sex that would be practiced, the anti-life, the violation of God's order, the hatred towards the real order of male-female relationships. The male competitiveness with women you see between gay men, and so it's like, and that's why then who does Satan first pick on? He picks on Eve. And so the Satan, he wants to pick on not the strong man, he wants to pick on the woman. And it just reminds me, it's like when I think about it, if I was going to just be really crass, because I know that we're not supposed to think about it like that, right? But it makes me chuckle, and it kind of makes me laugh and connects dots that Satan's a homosexual man.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's why the Baphomet is so
right, and that's exactly, it's a man with breasts.
Right, it's right in between, and it's kind of like, I think, not that he's a he, but Satan wears both faces. But it seems like the female, oftentimes in all these goddess religions, seems like it's a lot of times that you see more. But it's both. But you know what I'm saying. But
yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's, again, I'm not telling anybody, just FYI, who might be listening, I'm not telling anybody to go out and tell your priest, hey, listen to some Orthodox guy, he talks about theology, he said we think about Satan as a gay man. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, right. I'm just saying for my own semiotic purposes that I think it's funny. I think it's interesting to think of him like that. Like if you were to personify Satan, to personify him that way, I think it embodies a lot of the things that he represents. Not just the sodomy, but the sort of, because we often do refer to him as a he, so it's a he, but the competitiveness, the attacking of women, the inversion of the order, all that stuff, I think it just kind of works when we frame him that way. So, but
yeah, and another interesting thing too is that if you take the ideal of equality to the furthest conclusion, you have to be essentially like a death worshiper or death cult, because you have to cut things down. You can't bring everything up to an equal level. It's like that one short story, Harrison Bergeron. I think it's by the guy who did Fahrenheit 451. I can't remember his name,
but for Ray Bradbury, didn't he do?
Yes, I think he did Harrison Bergeron, which is a short story about kind of having these people that they're all shackled and stuff to make everybody equal. So it's essentially just kind of enslaving everybody.
I see. Well, brother, I got one more caller. I was going to hit up Pano. Is there anything else you want to say before hopping off here?
No, I don't think so.
All right, brother. Well, Dave, man, I appreciate you calling in again. It was a great combo. I thought it was pretty insightful. Everybody in the chat's loving our conversation about Satan.
Very nice.
But yeah, man, please call in again next time I do a call-in show. I always love hearing from you. Again, what state are you in? I don't think I asked you last time.
Yeah, you did. Ohio.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're over in Ohio. I always try to. I want to put like a mental map of everybody, so I try to ask everybody where they're at. We haven't had any European callers yet. Everybody's been in the U.S., but nice. So yeah, you're super close to me. Yeah, I remember now. You're over near Dayton, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, brother. Well, I will again say my partings. Hopefully we speak again soon. Feel free to reach out. You have any questions or comments or just want to say something, feel free to reach out whenever, brother. But hope you have a wonderful night. God bless you and your family, and good luck to all your endeavors in 2021.
You too. Blessings.
Blessings, brother. Take it easy. God bless.
All right, bye.
All right, that was Dave again for round 2. Excellent call. Now we got Pano coming on. I'm getting ready to call Pano. Pano is in the chat. We're getting ready to really break down masculinity here. Let me call Pano.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
What's up, my brother? How you doing?
Oh, it's been doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great, man.
Besides sitting there streaming for 3 hours.
I know. I didn't expect to go this long, but it's like once I start the phone calls, they're always so interesting, and it's like next thing I know, 30 minutes went by or whatever, and it's like, geez. But I did not realize it was almost 3 hours into this.
It's like a breath of fresh air to talk to people who aren't completely. Like, I hate to sound elitist and all, but you know what it's like, man. You go through even people in your family, and it's like, God bless them. They're still operating at that lower level of abstraction that's been, provided for them by social media. And It's just like, can we go beyond this? You try to, and they just don't like it. So, yeah, you just deal with it.
Right. So what's going on, man? How are you doing Friday night? Pano?
I'm here. You can't hear me?
Oh, no, you cut out there for a second. I didn't hear anything you said. I said, what are you up to Friday night?
Oh, not much. Just getting some food in, and hopefully I can hit the gym tomorrow morning.
Oh, what workout you got going on? What are you working out in the morning?
I've just been doing splits, upper lower splits.
Okay.
I don't know if I should change that, because your whole talk with Michael Sisko on the type of body composition you want and adapting your workout, I'm like, that's something that I should take into account, because I haven't made too much progress. I mean, I made a good amount of progress my senior year of college because I was skinny as hell and I didn't really lift that much weight.
Right.
So that was sort of newbie gains, but now it's just hasn't been quite productive. So I'm looking to hit a stride soon. So we'll see.
Well, yeah. What type of body, if you had to choose your fitness goals, like if you had to describe, like what kind of would you want to look like? Are you wanting to build more muscle?
Definitely. Yeah. Because I've always been. Here's the thing I regret, because when I was in high school, I was deep into long distance running. Right, I did like 3 half marathons in high school, and I think I did one in college as well.
Wow.
And I'm thankful for it. It was I learned a lot about pacing yourself, of listening to your body, of enduring pain for long stretches of time, and using that to fuel the runner's high that would come later. There's a lot that you learn from that, but now I'm looking back, I'm like, nah, I need to build muscle, because the runner's body is not going to be something that's going to be conducive to that Logos type body, if you know what I mean. Like, being a man in general. So I'm as thankful for it, but if I'd go back in time, I'd say, nah, bro, hit the weights. High school, best time to build it.
It is.
To answer your question,
yeah, go ahead.
The type of wider shoulders, pecs, and that type of V taper, which is definitely.
Yep, that's what I'm after.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, you look great, dude.
Well, thank you very much, bro. I've been working on it. I told Luke, I knew I was going to make these videos at the beginning of 2020. And so I very quietly was still making my streams and making my videos, but I was so diligent and disciplined in my diet and my my workout routine that when I produced my first videos in November, I wanted people to be like, wow, I didn't realize you were that muscular. I didn't realize you kept, I wanted to surprise the quality again, because I'm all about, I want to surprise people with quality, and that was my goal. But I, like you, want that V taper. I want that what's called obviously typically called a classic physique, a real wide up top V taper to a waist, and then nice ripped legs. But I right now weigh about 188, and I don't ever want to get over 195. So I don't want to get huge. People see my workouts and like, oh my God, dude, you better stop. You're going to, it's like, dude, stop. Like, you don't even work out. I'll be fine.
Yeah. You don't even know how, I'm not even nearly at the level as you are, but when you hit a consistent week, 2 weeks, month of working out, you just want to go deeper.
Exactly.
From my limited experience. And so when people tell you to stop, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about, really.
Exactly.
You're just jealous. You feel insecure, and you try to resolve that feeling by trying to slow the person down.
I agreed.
And that's not how you deal with it. Here's one thing I learned. It was from, I believe it was Elder Athanasios Mytilineos. He's one of the famous monks from Limassol. He passed away in 2006.
Uh-huh.
And he had this so great, like straight up Athonite, classically Orthodox Greek wisdom, right? And one of the things he'd always say, this is like a straight up like grandfather piece of wisdom. Whenever you feel the 10th commandment, like you're slipping, right? You're feeling jealous of other people. You're starting to covet.
Right.
A good way to combat that is to ask God to bless them with more of the thing that you're jealous of. So it's
wow, that's a great.
Person,
I love that spiritual practice.
It's like a cool. It's like a hesychastic, like Uno reverse card, to your mind.
No, I love that.
And it's like that's great. It's like, oh, you have a good ball, then I hope you balloon up even further. Or oh, you have a nice wife. May you have 10 kids.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that you start to get in the habit of doing that, and that quickly kills off the jealousy because that's just. Yeah, but anyway, that was a side thing, but that really resonated with me a few weeks ago when I heard about that.
Yeah, and continuing on that, I think that jealousy also, to a degree, comes from a place in which the person who's jealous doesn't feel like they can get the thing that they're jealous of.
That's true. Good point.
Where I think, again, part of what Luke and I think, again, just more men getting in the gym, taking control of their body, is you're not going to be, at least physically, all right, I can only speak about your body. I don't think you're going to be as jealous of other men or their physique or how, because you realize I can get that. Like, again, like you're talking about, you only do a few weeks, then you don't want to stop. I have not missed my workout routine for the entirety of 2020. I didn't miss a week. And I don't plan on stopping in 2021 either.
Pandemic.
Huh?
Fake pandemic, I should say, yeah.
Yeah, even with the pandemic, I didn't stop. When I had a workout day, I went and got adjustable dumbbells. I got a bench. I figured out ways to work out. I never stopped for the entirety of 2020. And now I'm in this great place where I'm in the best shape of my life at 31. And I only want to continue. It's like I don't need to speed up. Like people think of you do something good, you need to do it more, but even faster. No. I'm all about consistency. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did last year, but do it on top of what I've already built. And so the name of the game for me is more consistency than speed. And I think that's what the jealousy thing is. People, they haven't been consistent enough in their life to have that empowering feeling where all I have to do is implement these things and then move towards it, and I can have that too. And it's a freeing feeling, and it's a masculine feeling, because a woman then wants to be with a man who has the self-confidence to steer himself through the world.
Yeah, exactly. Because she represents the world. She represents the turbulent, fallen nature of the world. And this is literally what St. Ignatius Branchaninov said in his arena. I'm not
right.
Like, oh, this is sexist. Like, that's a saint said that. So there you go.
And that's what I was trying to get at with the feminine archetype of matter, how we understand matter to be generally feminine, because that totally resonates with what you're saying.
Yeah. And matter is not meant to stay fallen. Like,
yes,
the Gnostic idea. No, matter is supposed to be resurrected, and Christ incarnated in a body, right? And that's a very important thing for people to keep in mind, especially because there's actually Father Seraphim Rose's Genesis lecture on Adam and Eve. He had this awesome section where he quoted from, I believe it was St. Gregory the theologian.
Uh-huh.
And it went, I'm sure that there's a clip on it on the Incitum Verbum channel. It's like a bunch of Jay Dyer clips.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy. The guy who cuts those. I've talked with him.
But Father Seraphim was like, oh, well, the devil went to not through the man, but through the woman. And St. Gregory dealt with this. He said, well, did Satan go to the woman because she was weaker, because she had more passion? And he's like, no, like, don't think that. That's a temptation that a lot of people think. The reason why he went straight to the woman is because the woman had not received God's commandments directly. She had received it from her husband.
Mm.
And that's a very important distinction, because, a lot of especially like the extreme, the hookup crowds or whatever, will take this to the extreme and say, oh, women is chaos. It's like, nah, not necessarily. Not really. It's your job to reflect the law of God in your very being,
Right.
and carry that law to her in a loving way. It's difficult to pin down exactly, but a lot of guys feel tempted to just become super sexist about that or whatever, in the bad sense. I mean, not the what people consider sexist, which is just normal logic. But
Right.
yeah, you get what I'm saying.
No, I do. I do get what you're saying. Yeah.
That leads into the thing I wanted to mention, but
yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about this. We have in Orthodox theology, we have the stress of the persons of God, the persons of the Trinity, not the essence of God, because the essence is beyond us. However, even further than that, you have the monarchy of the Father, and how the Father communicates the divine essence to the persons, the other two persons, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, I don't know, how can we? Reminds me. I mean, we obviously have culture, and reality itself is fairly patriarchal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we communicate our identity and our form, or what's the word I'm looking for? Obviously, our DNA and all the other things, but I'm trying to say this. I had this idea in my head, but the fact that we all, in terms of the wife and the children, it all comes back to the Father. I don't know exactly how I had this. It sounded great in my mind, but now that I think about it, just flesh this out without being weird or heretical,
Could it be that may be a different angle to, if I'm trying to pick up with what you're saying, that the way in which we mimic the Trinity, in which we see that formational pattern present within our own relationships, is when the man takes the monarchical role within the nuclear family, which then gives the sort of individuated personhood of wife and child. So you can't be a wife until you have a husband, and you can't have a child. You can't be a child until you have parents. And so the correct placement of man gives identity to both other characters. You see what I'm saying?
There you go. That's yeah. I couldn't formulate that, but there you go. You're really good at that, bro.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No, yeah, thanks. I was trying to hit on that, but
right. I felt like that's where you're going. And that's why I was trying to pick up. Let me know if I caught it right. But no,
I did. No, you did. That was good.
And I think that's true, right? And that's why then, when we look at society, just because I just thought of this idea now that you brought it up. I had not thought about that, but what's popping up in my mind now is then to look at the displacement of man and how that has depersoned society. And so by the deplacement of man as monarchia, we see women no longer interested in the personhood of wife. Right, wife and mother aren't those aren't identities a lot of young women are moving towards now. Obviously, Christian women are, but I'm excluding them from the conversation.
Yeah.
And so, like secular women, so the displacement of man leads to a sort of depersoning of wife and mother, and the displacement of man displaces the identity of the child because there is no father. Yeah. And so if there's no father, then that child's also going to have a misunderstanding of their relationship to God. And so we can see this cascading effect within our society by man not assuming the role he's supposed to be in. And that doesn't mean, and so that right there, just as what you said, should tell every ortho bro to stop blaming women for everything. Like, I get so tired of that stuff online. It's like, guys, stop blaming women. And it's not you generally, like you or me or anybody alive right now. It's just historically
I've done it before.
Yeah,
I've done it before.
I know. No. Oh, well, I've complained about women too. I mean, what I meant to say is it's not you or me or any other man living right now that's solely responsible. But I was going to say it's you, the man, that is responsible for our situation. And the fact that so many guys in the trad Catholic and the Orthodox circles want to adopt these traditional worldviews and feel like, well, they're fixed because they're a man, and now they're back into a traditional masculine tradition. That now they're done, and they can just like turn and point fingers and blame at the rest of society. And it's like, dude, No. Like
No, you recapitulate these virtues. It's like it's almost like they take these archetypes of what it means to be a man, and they depersonalize that, and then they say, well, why isn't this working? It should be working. Why isn't this working? It's like, no, you personalize it. You make it alive.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
that's why it's all about the embodiment of our tradition. That's why it's like, if I could have a wish for our Orthodox community, is that when people engage, especially with the Orthodox men, because again, if everything what we're saying is true, that we have to get the male in the right position for all the other pieces in the puzzle to fall into their positions. But if the corner piece or the cornerstone, if the man isn't in his piece, the whole foundation isn't going to line up. So
yeah, exactly.
So
and you don't blame them. It's like a good analogy or simple analogy is, well, would you blame a child for losing his mind when not aided properly through life?
Right.
Not necessarily. Right. And so, of course, a woman has far more agency, but it's similar to that effect, right?
It is similar to that effect. And if I had one wish, what I was going to continue with what I was saying, that if I had one wish, no, you're fine. If I had one wish for the Orthodox community, it's that the men in the Orthodox movement embodied the values. And that when somebody went to describe whatever the phenomenon that we're all participating in, if somebody was asked another person, both non-Orthodox, what all that an ortho bro is, or what they couldn't help but talk about how, I don't know, it's just like all these really masculine guys. It's like they know a lot about theology. They take it pretty, but that would further our movement more than anything, is if all the men, when people looked at the movement, they were like, geez, what is going on over there?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
very...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I used to watch, I don't watch him as much anymore now because he's wise, but I don't know, let's pray that he becomes Orthodox. But I used to watch Elliot Hulse, and one of the things that he used to say was like, man, we got to be up to something. We can't just be sitting at home watching the hockey game. That's lame, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Elliot Hulse, I mean, he's made his Christian turn, so I am glad that because he was kind of moving into sort of like a tribal paganism thing. And now he's made like a full 90-degree turn. He's deep within like trad Catholic books and readings and stuff. Which, if he's trad Catholic, it's only a matter of time. Exactly. Again, and it seems like he's taking it very seriously. Like he's changing much of his life. So. Again, as long as we perpetuate what we're doing, again, how great would it be if eventually he was to see the validity of the true faith and then adopt that with also how he lives, because he does live a masculine disciplined lifestyle. And and so whether you think, again, you can have all these other opinions about different aspects of him, but that is what we need, because again, the male piece, if we're playing, like, we have to get our piece, the men, in the right position, so then all the other pieces fall into place. And we ourselves can do that. Like whatever man's watching tonight, you are that puzzle piece. Like, think about it, reflect on it, and then become it. And then, like, how could the whole role, our theology of icons. We are to be icons unto each other as Christ is an icon unto us. And so if you're an icon, realize, take it seriously. Be an icon. It's not like you're a famous role model or anything, but just take your existence, your being, seriously.
Yeah, amen. Amen to that. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah. So I have some super chats. You want to stay on the lines? We, feel free to bring up anything. Got a few super chats here I can read through. Stuck Mannon sent in 55 NOK. I'm not positive what that currency is. But he said thoughts on protein shakes. And so Stuck Mannon, I would say I am a fan of protein shakes. For most of 2020, I was eating arguably an adjacent diet to what is called carnivore. But after being chrismated, I have been not so much on the real strict steak a day diet, just to kind of build the habit of getting out of that, because I built it being in it for all of 2020. So when I'm not eating steak, yeah, I drink a lot of protein shakes. If you're Orthodox, again, stuck man, and I don't know what your religion is. Obviously, when you fasting, you're going to have to move your protein shake from whey to vegan. That's another thing you might be interested in. But generally speaking, I'm a big fan of protein shakes. If you're trying to build muscle, and if you're a man and you want to produce more testosterone, you want to get more protein in your system. And protein shakes are just an easy way to do that. I wouldn't go overboard with them. People also can get gut and dietary problems from drinking way too many protein shakes. The question then comes in, do you use milk or water? That's another thing. So, Stuck Mannin, I do recommend protein shakes. I recommend, as a man, at least focusing for 2021, focus on just having a higher protein diet. And I'm telling you, you'll feel a difference after a while. It's really, really important if you're a man. Don't be dependent on carbs or veggies or fruits. Like that's not gonna help build testosterone in your body. So, Stuck Mannin, thank you very, very much for the NOK, the 55 NOK. I do recommend protein shakes. I use really what's ever on sale. So I'm not one of these sticklers that says you have to get a particular protein powder or brand. I just get what's ever on sale. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah. Next super chat is from Theoria Zone. Throws in $4.99 and says, "Thank you for your erudite perspective. Your insights are excellent and a big help. God bless you." Well, thank you so much, Theoria Zone, man. I really appreciate your kind words. And if I can say anything that gives you insight or aids in your own perspective related to God, then I'm very thankful. I'm humbled, and I'm doing what I believe to be my job. So thank you so much, brother, for the $4.99, and thank you very much for the support. I truly, truly appreciate it. Radio Musician throws in $10 and says, "Keep up the awesomeness." Ray, great convo, brother. Thank you very much for calling in. Thank you very much for the $10, brother. You didn't have to do that. I really, really appreciate it. Pano, is there anything you want to say to Ray? I know he was excited that you called in tonight.
Yeah, ask anything. I'm going through the chat right now to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
No, let's go. Oh, okay. Well, good to see you, Ray. Thanks for joining the church. Or, no, so thanks. Well, congratulations for joining the church. Well, welcome home.
Yeah.
And
yeah, everybody.
Yeah, may God be with you, man.
Yeah, everybody give Ray a special congratulations on becoming Orthodox. That's always a big deal. It's always a journey, you know, and then to become Orthodox, it's not like a profession of faith. You have to try to become Orthodox. You know, you can't just go to a church and then a couple times and make a proclamation. So, congratulations to Ray. Next super chat is $5 from Brandon, and he said, "Finished my do-it-yourself squat bench rack and signed up on the website. Church of Swole 2021."
Beast.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much, brother, for the $5, man. I really appreciate that. I really do, man. And thank you so much for signing up at the website. Like, guys, that means so much to me. Like, you don't understand how much time I put into all this stuff. It's just me making everything. So when you guys appreciate what I do and then you sign up at the website and all the extra videos I try to make, it really, really means a lot. So thank you so much, Brandon, for the $5. Love that you created your own squat and bench rack. I'm jealous. What I did is I got a Bowflex just in case we go into another big lockdown. My video, Logos Fitness doesn't stop. So I got adjustable dumbbells and I got a Bowflex I can put together, like an old used one, just in case. So if Biden puts us under another intense lockdown where gyms are closed, you'll catch videos where I'm in a shed with a old Bowflex and some adjustable dumbbells, and we're gonna get at it. So thank you, Brandon. I feel you, brother. Really appreciate it. Gen Z Philosophy throws in $4.99 and says, I think that Reiki and other types of healing methods and spiritual practices likely open one up to demons. My mom is heavy in the New Age. Pray for her. Gen Z Philosophy, I'm sorry that your mother is heavy in the New Age. I certainly will say a prayer for her. And Pano, this would be a good topic to hear your thoughts on too. Does Reiki and other types of healing methods lead spiritual practice open up to demons? I think they can, certainly. I don't think, as some people try to associate, even when I talk about just because you take a psychedelic or you practice a healing art or whatever they're called, I don't think that equates to opening one, like you are encountering a demon, or people make it like it's, I don't know. Maybe just the rhetoric. Again, we all have different experiences. I don't want to go too far into it, but
the only thing I wanted to add
go
was
ahead.
I put a name in the chat, James Cortides in all caps. He's a good friend of mine. He lives out in Florida, fellow Greek, has I think 2 or 3 children, if I'm not mistaken. I've only seen 2 of them, so on his Facebook, but been deep into his content on YouTube. He does a lot of reading. Just take his name and put it in the YouTube search and subscribe to him. He used to be heavily into Taoism and all that, and further Eastern forms of meditation and healing. And I believe he did Reiki for a little while. So he's the person you're going to want to ask. You can also add him on Facebook. He'll probably I'd love to answer it. But yeah, he's gone back to his he grew up Greek Orthodox, didn't take it too seriously, went in wild into all these ideas, and then he came back to Greek Orthodoxy. And so a common experience that a lot of us have. But yeah, he's the one that you want to consult for that.
Right. No, I think that's great advice. I'm not familiar with his work, so check him out. Gen Z Philosophy. Again, I certainly agree that Reiki can open people up to demons. New Age worldview is ultimately demonic. But yeah, hopefully your mom, we will pray for her and she will eventually see the light. Well, we will hopefully pray that she does. And yeah, and so thank you for the $4.99. I think it's a good question. The only thing I've noticed is the rhetoric within Orthodoxy, and that's kind of what I was stumbling with right now and trying to, how do I talk about, is I see some absolutism in the way people talk about non-Orthodox practices. Like, if you do this, that equals spiritual possession, this or that. And even though I don't recommend doing any of these activities at all, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And so
it's risky.
It is risky.
Roosh,
yes, it
when
is risky.
Roosh did shrooms or whatever he did, I think he had a vision of the Mother of God, or I forget exactly what it was, but it led it back to Orthodoxy. So it's like, God can use anything to communicate with you, but that doesn't mean that you should just go out and do it. There is
exactly.
So, but anyway,
that's kind of what I'm going to
get. You don't want to abuse. You don't want to abuse God's economy. That's the thing I notice with people. Like God will. He has the energy. He's of his uncreated energies. He has mercy, and so he can be merciful and throw you a bone here or there and lead you to the truth in a non-conventional way. But but that doesn't mean that everything is relative and you can do whatever you want, because he also has the energy of wrath, right? He can.
Yep.
You don't know which one he will choose to use. So
exactly.
Anyway, that's a different thing, but I thought it was apropos.
No, it is. And my conversation earlier with Poker Bear, who lives in Boulder, Colorado, was about psychedelics and how he had a psychedelic experience that has brought him to Christianity and now interested into Orthodoxy. And he was asking me about my LSD experience that I had that was kind of related to Logos. And that's why I'm so hesitant to talk about that, because you can't control how other people interpret your words. I know what I mean. And that economia of God's mercy and stuff like that, by showing people himself through non-conventional ways, I totally think is true. And that's why I don't recommend anybody taking psychedelics to have a journey to Orthodoxy like I did. That's not how it works.
Especially if you've been watching Jay Dyer and you know the theology well, you have no excuse at all to go down any other route than Orthodoxy.
Yeah. And so God presented himself to me through that way because that's what I needed to become Orthodox. That's not to say that you want to become Orthodox, so go drop some acid or something like that. That's a total misconstrual of what I'm trying to say. It's like, that's not what I'm saying. And I get emails like that, and that's why I feel so cautious to talk about any sort of positive revelatory experience I've had in altered states. Because in a private context, when I'm talking just to one person, I can make sure that they understand what I mean by all that. But when I speak in streams and hundreds of people hear it, everybody hears something a little bit different. And I get messages from people acting like I'm consoling or promoting or telling people to do something, which is, it's like, how did you get that? That's not what I said.
Don't be so low IQ, man. I mean, I hate to sound mean, but nuance, baby.
I know, that's what it's about. It's all about the details. So, anyways, thank you, Gen Z Philosophy. We will pray for your mother. Again, I hope that you yourself are also making your way to Orthodoxy. I'd love to hear more about your own spiritual journey and where you're at. Sorry, I can't speak. But again, thank you very much for the $4.99. Next super chat is from the one and only Pano. Thank you so much, brother, for the $5. You said Catholics made God's grace created, making it dispensable at will, and Protestants made God's creation disenchanted, ripe for industrial commodification. That is one sentence, and there is so much to unpack there. It's so true. It's so true. Do you want to you unpack that sentence, man? There's it's like a whole lecture just within what the ramifications of that one sentence.
I don't know, man. I was possessed, and the spirit told me to write that. So no, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm just messing. No, because I think you guys, I forget which caller was on, but you actually had we're talking about the business aspect of Protestantism, right?
Oh yes. I think that was Dave.
Yeah, and that's
Dave was.
Dave. Yeah. That sprung up this idea in my mind, and I'm like, well, yeah, because when you look at what happened in the West between Saint Gregory Palamas and Barlaam, and how grace was reduced to created illusory effects, right? And then you had, that came into my mind, and I said, well, then the logical outworking of that, and this is partly from Father Seraphim Rose's survival course. He brought this to mind, but the logical outworking of that further would be just reducing everything down to matter. So not only would materialism dominate, but you have, if it's just matter, and if it's just emerged, if it's just this emergent resource from evolution, which whatever that is,
right.
They don't define that.
Right.
And it's something that you can sell and use for all. And it's an abuse of, it's like an abuse of our capacity to input logos in the world, you know? Right. You're doing it in a way that's impersonal and predatory.
Right.
So, I don't know, just thoughts that came to mind. I thought that would be interesting.
Right. Well, when I hear that, what comes to mind for me, again, is that progressivism. And so we see progressive in the term of literally just using in regards to like the concept of progress, that post-schism, again, what you're talking about with Catholics making God's grace created. These are all, in my mind, movements away from the correct theology of God, movements away from God. And again, the way that I define progressivism totally fits. So when you look at then Protestants making God's creation disenchanted, which they certainly do, and they disenchant it by focusing so much on reason, right? Because Protestantism and Enlightenment thinking basically go hand in hand. This were, again, same with industrial commodification, as you're talking about, industrial capitalism, the Industrial Revolution. That's why industry was so much more centered in Northern Europe, Protestant nations. But it totally does disenchant the world because there is no mysticism to Protestantism. Protestantism, by definition, is anti-mystic, and it's all rational.
Saw this coming too when he lived in England. He noticed the factories creeping up. That was one of Tolkien's inspiration for Isengard. You know, when he was created, when they were uprooting the trees and threw him into Shield the Uruk-hai.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. But anyway, that's dismal. But you know, God has a way to resolve all this, so we just have to participate.
Exactly. Nope. And that's my saving grace when I because for what I do online here, I'm always trying to stay on top of the sort of latest happenings, even though, especially lately, it's always heartbreaking. It's blackpilling at times. It's frustrating. It's annoying, but I do it anyways, and it's just ultimately God's in control. Ultimately, God wants Joe Biden to be president. Ultimately, whatever is coming is God's will. That we just have to end on that. You know, I get so caught up in like, what can we do, and just thinking about it that I just stop. It's
Knowing when
just
to
useless.
relinquish
Just
yourself. I know it seems counterintuitive to being, logos-like, to be masculine, to be imposing, but at the same time, there is a level of relinquishing, like I said, and that's one thing too. I used to have really high levels of anxiety, as many Greeks often do, right? But I don't know. The past few years, I just sort of, I don't want to say become stoic, because that's not the correct word to use, but I've adopted this understanding that, well, God will pull you out of this in one way or another. And if it's his will for you to die soon, then, well, maybe he's saving me from committing a horrible sin. There's just this constant reassurance that things will be okay. And I guess part of that is just growing up in general. But yeah, I deal with a lot of people, like the people who message me on Jay Dyer's Discord. A lot of people get high levels of anxiety. They're constantly asking me and others questions, and I'm like, I don't know what to say.
right.
Go out and hit the gym for a little bit. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
That's the big one. It's like, for me, I just pray, I give it to God, and then you have to have a physical release of all that built-in tension and frustration within your body. And so if you're a man, just go throw some weight around, with good form, of course, but just go lift some weights, man. Like, I'm telling you, and you do that for a few months, you're going to feel better. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be moving in the right direction. It just takes the consistency and the commitment. And after a while, it all starts to fit, and you're not going to stop. And then when you get to the place where you're not going to stop your fitness, it feels like you're not going to stop moving. You're not going to stop till you reach your goals. And that's an empowering feeling.
And it's the thing that too, I mean, if you have access to an Orthodox church, and if you're baptized, chrismated, a good recourse is just to confess.
Yep.
Like, go. There's something you're not repenting about. You don't have the grace of God consoling you and giving you rest. And I had, personally, I wish I had this more, but I don't have the guts to do it. But on 4th of July, this 2020, I was able to confess to my priest, and I'm not trying to build myself up here. I'm trying to prove a point. I had an amazing confession, and tears were streaming down my face, like shame, love, hope. All these emotions were streaming down me, and I said, "Oh, this is the grace of God healing me. It's the light of God burning off my sins and restoring me at the same time." It was a beautiful experience. And then as I went to drive home on 4th of July to spend time with my family, I was kind of preparing myself mentally. Oh, we have the people here who are like super far right or left wing, and super liberal. I have to watch out what I say. But on that day, I just got there, and I hate this sounds cheesy, but I was healed. For that moment, I should say, I was healed.
Yeah.
And I was able to just freely commune with the people in my family in joy and loving joy. And I didn't, quote unquote, trigger anybody. And they really loved my presence. They loved the grace that was radiating from me. Not that I'm special. God allowed that to happen for me, and I thank him for it. And my father even came up to me later, and he's like, "What the hell happened to you, man? You remind me of the Pano from 2002 when you were a little boy. Like, what was that? What happened?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. Just had a good day." I didn't tell him all this, but
right.
Just to prove a point, like repentance, right? Repentance, purification. There's something that's blocking your heart from having faith and having that joy. We should be joyous as Christians, and we often forget that.
Right. Agreed. No, I had a great confession. I had a first confession for my chrismation with my priest, and I went all out. It did get tearful at times. And he also at one point told me just to stop. I was getting a little bit too too specific about all my shortcomings, but
Yeah, I know what that's like. You're like, oh, I gotta go into all this detail. I gotta dig
Right.
and crawl. It's like, it reminds me of that. You've seen Spider-Man 3, right?
no, I'm not sure if I have or
Sam
not.
Raimi.
Is that the one
Where,
with the
like,
black Spider-Man?
He's got this alien black suit on him,
Okay, yeah.
right? The
Yep.
black suit.
Yep.
And he goes to the church and he's like, oh, he beat his lover, but he punched her. And that woke him up, like, what's happening to me? I'm becoming a monster. And as he was ripping off that suit, it was like brutal. The alien kept on wanting to hold on to him. And I'm like, that scene is what it's like to be in confession. That's right there. Like, you got to watch that scene. All you in the stream, you got to watch the scene where Peter tries to take the suit off, Spider-Man 3. Like, that's what it's like. But anyway, rambling. But just things you should look into.
Yeah, dude, I love that. No, I loved my confession. Just the way you feel afterwards. You just feel a little bit lighter, and yeah, you just feel like a little bit of a burden is taken off your shoulders, and the church has to deal with it now. That's the way my priest presented it to me, is that the theology of confession is what we're doing, is we're taking our burdens and we're placing our burdens onto the church, because the church can handle it.
Yeah, that's what Christ came to do. It sounds a bit Protestant to say this, but nail your sins on him and he'll take care of it. But
no. Amen.
It's true.
Amen. Well, the next super chat is from Tatiana. She throws in $5. Thank you so much, Tatiana. She said, God bless you. I love your streams. So, being that you need a lot of protein, how do you deal during fasting days, especially during Lent? Well, Tatiana, I have not fasted during Lent while working out 3 to 4 days a week. So I'm not sure. I will certainly be figuring that out. I plan on drinking probably a lot of vegan protein. As of right now, I haven't done a full Orthodox fast. So call me weak-willed if you choose. That might be true. But I've not yet to do in hell the complete Orthodox fast entirety through. So I wouldn't know. I do plan on working my way up in the future, as I've said before, and this may be a sort of prideful disposition that I may have to work on, but I know the way that I'm successful at things is by slowly working into them. And so I feel, so that was my goal, and that's why I told my priest. He's asked me about the fasting thing, and I told him that I plan on every fast get a little bit further and further and further into it. But the first one, I didn't plan on just wholeheartedly changing, because I know that I would probably have a negative bounce back from that. I'd rather just slowly move into it and make it a habitual process. And so he was cool with that, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but for getting protein during fasting days or during Lent, my plan is really just vegan protein. So vegan protein shakes and stuff like that probably is what I'm going to do. I know you can eat shellfish, correct, Pano, during fasting?
Oh, yeah, technically you can. The thing, too, is if you haven't watched the Jay Dyer, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, and Tristan's talk on Orthodoxy and Carnivore, that's like people haven't watched it. I frequent that a lot. That's such a great stream. But yeah, like if you want to go into that, you can. The thing that's the most important is, well, it reminds me of what like Father Peter Heers would say, like, are you going deeper? Are you going deeper? And it's like, oh, I haven't fasted the way the calendar told me to fast yet. It's like, okay, well, that could be a source of pride. But if you want to get down to it, St. Gregory Palamas used to go 2-3 months without eating or sleeping. It's like, well, are you full of pride for not doing that? So, no, you have to understand that, too. It's like, well, you're at this level, and it's about trying to add more with every liturgical cycle. And that's all it comes down to. That's what matters. So, but yeah, people often get pharisaic about that, and that's not good.
Yeah. So Tatiana says, yes, take your time. And she says, I think fish is okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, fish is good. Fish is always good. I mean,
You can eat fish
shrimp
while
technically
fasting?
counts, but the thing is, like, you don't want to. I have a friend, and this might not be a good example. We don't like him as much, but I have a family member who knows Metropolitan Carlistos Ware.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend was newly into Orthodox, or he's not, well, my friend's father, I should say. He's a professor at, I forget exactly what he's a professor of, but he teaches at Notre Dame, I believe. I'm not sure. I have to ask him in a while since we spoke. But he gave the story a while ago about how he knew Metropolitan Carlistos, and he was at a dinner with him, and he was obsessing over, like, well, should this brand of sauce or whatever, it says that it's not, it doesn't contain these ingredients, but I've researched that it does. And Carlistos was like, well, whatever, I'm going to pour it on my food anyway, because it says this, it says that it's refraining from these ingredients or whatever, so it doesn't matter to me at this point. So it's like, well, say what you want about him, but that's something that, taking that simple approach too, not going too crazy on this or that, but yeah.
Yeah, my priest did not give me the blessing for the carnivore. I asked, but my priest also just retired, and
is that Subdeacon Mark retired, right?
No. Subdeacon Mark, no, he is retired, yes, but my priest, Father Athanasius, retired.
Okay.
But I respect his wishes, so I am not. But I feel conflicted talking about it, but I felt the best in my life eating steak every single day. And since even not doing that, I've noticed a difference. I've noticed a difference in the way my belly bloats when I eat non-meat based like meals. Like when I eat
you might attract an ortho girl who likes bloated bellies. That could be God's providence. You don't know.
Yeah. I just really enjoyed the way my body feels on a carnivore adjacent diet. And would I be open to, if a priest let me be on the carnivore diet, would I do it? I very much might choose to do that, but I don't know if I have like a specific medical reason for it to occur, and that's why my priest didn't give me a blessing. It's because I didn't have like, oh, I have this autoimmune problem, and if I don't eat mostly meat, then it acts up. In that case, he probably would have been okay with it. But because I don't have, and honestly, and I can't really make this argument to a priest, but men are so under, or their T levels are so depleted that we almost have to eat meat all the time just to get back to baseline. Like we have to lift meat, eat meat, and like get things out of our system just to get back to baseline. And so to a degree, it's like, well, I kind of do have a medical reason. But just wanting to respect authority in my priest. So okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's willing to respect authority, but at the same time, like all that extra energy that you'd be getting from eating all that meat, I think the point there is, well, are you using that high T, that high energy to glorify yourself? Are you using it to fall back to some of your old sins, or are you going to be using that to serve the church, serve Christ, and serve his people?
Yep.
What are you going to do with that energy? And it's like, well, a lot of people probably would be tempted to just use that excess energy to fornicate some more and then repent afterwards. Yeah. That's something that Brother Augustine, Michael Witkoff, and I have been talking about that, and he's like, yeah, I have to be careful with my pine pollen gang. I have to be careful with that, because if I take too much of it, I start to return to my old self. So that's the thing to think about.
Wow, that's really good advice. Really good advice. Well, Tatiana, that was the first question. She also threw in another $2. Thank you so much, Tatiana. She said, I had to become sober to connect with God. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Certainly, I think ultimately a connection with God is sobering. one way or another, whether that's sobering you from literal intoxication, or it's sobering you from a previous way of life, or it's sobering you from a previous perspective or paradigm. But a connection with God is sobering, so it makes sense why you had to be sober to eventually connect with God. And I think Tatiana mentioned in the comments that she was a bit of a drinker previously. So again, glory to God that you're able to drop a previous habit or addiction. I don't know what year, so I don't want to make it sound any worse than it was, so I don't want to say anything. But glory to God, and so glad that you ended up finding him. And Tatiana, I assume you're Orthodox. Tatiana sounds like a Russian-based name, so I assume you're probably culturally, if not literally, Orthodox. But thank you so much for the super chats. And really, that concludes tonight's stream. We are 3 hours and 45 minutes into really just conversation. I only read quotes for like 15 minutes to begin tonight's stream, and everything's been phone calls. So thank you to everyone who's called in. Really, really loved all the conversations. I think they're really powerful, informative, and going to be useful to anybody who hears them in the future. So thank you to everybody who's called in. Thank you so much to everybody who's sent in super chats and who's contributed and supports. And thank you again to everybody who's signed up over at the website. It really means a lot to me. Pano, is there anything you want to say before hopping off the stream here?
Hit the like. We only have 78. That's not acceptable. 4 dislikes, man.
I got 4 dislikes. I always, dude, I swear, there's like people who I hardly ever get a video that doesn't have a few dislikes. I don't get it. I mean, it's fine. I don't care. I think some people just are like kind of have a grudge against me, and so they just do that whenever I make a video. I don't know. Because nobody in the comment, like, very few does people say, hey, I kind of disliked your video and here's why. I never get that.
Yeah, no, never. It's like, well, I'm happy to be critiqued, but
exactly. I'd like to know, did I say something wrong? Did I get but it's usually just they don't like me one way or another, so it's fine. It's whatever. Different strokes for different folks. Well, I don't care.
Thanks for having me on for so long, dude. I really do.
Yeah, no problem, brother.
It's always... Again, I apologize if I took up too much of your time, but
no, not at all.
It was good.
No, not at all. Not at all, brother. It was. I knew you're gonna have some inciting things to say, so I figured might as well have a grand finale convo right at the end here. And I think that, again, we did have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and hopefully there are many takeaways for everybody who learned.
Because I had thoughts of, well, dang, maybe I should slowly get the ball rolling on making my own content, but I'm not sure exactly where to start. So pray for me on that. That is the
absolutely.
Right decision for me.
And I think you will know when the time is right. For me, I made content on a previous YouTube channel for 5 years, and only a fraction of it was me in front of the camera presenting my own ideas. And so that was like fully engaged in that stuff. And then at one point when my transition to Christianity, it was just like, well, now I have all this stuff to say, and now I know what direction and what type of content to make and all this different stuff. So maybe who knows, what God's providence is for you, but maybe one day it'll just kind of all click and it'll make sense, and you'll know what to put together then.
Right now, it's just making playlists and getting recordings and tweaking them up, cleaning them out. And
yeah, well, that's great content in and of itself. Exactly. Not all content has to be of an individual in front of a stream or a camera. I'm like, just by making, and I think Orthodoxy needs more of this, is like basically what I tried to do previously is like make shareable, interesting videos of other people talking. Again, I was promoting like Alan Watts, Timothy Leary, Terrence McKenna, all that stuff. But if we had beautiful visuals, of like 5, 10 minute, 20 minute, 30 minute, hour-long videos of different priests or people talking, something that is, it has the aesthetics for the youth. Like it would be appealing to the non-believer to listen, to open up the ears, to open up the eyes. That's what I feel like we have an opportunity with, because if you're already a believer, it's easy to sit and listen to a homily of an Orthodox priest. But if you're not a believer, who cares? Like, you're not going to listen to that. But if if it is that Orthodox priest, but it's presented in a video that's like really aesthetic, it's got video going, it's got visuals, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting.
Actually,
to watch.
now that you mention that, I put this project off. I think I should be able to finish it this week if I work on it. But there's like an 8-hour long, when put together, there's an 8-hour long series on marriage by that same monk that I mentioned earlier. His spiritual son recorded them in English. And if I can go in and clean that up and put that. I know a lot of people are interested in that.
There you go.
I listened to those a long time ago. I'm going to re-listen, but I feel like most people don't know about the website. It's kind of obscure, but
dude, that's invaluable content. I think that's a great place to just start while you figure out what videos you want to put together with your own voice. Having, building a channel for Orthodox people to go to find the voices of other people. I think that's great.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. That actually really inspired me.
Yeah. No problem at all. Anyways, guys, thank you for everyone. Again, thank you for all the callers. Thank you for all the super chats. Please, if you enjoy what I'm trying to do here at Church of the Eternal Logos, go to the website davidpatrickharry.com/register. That link is being posted right now in the live chat. If not, don't worry about it. I appreciate you guys being here. That's only for the people who can and want to contribute. That will give you access to 2 full libraries, one of education, one of fitness and lifestyle. So thank you guys. God bless everyone. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I will be off probably until Tuesday. So like I said, I won't be here as in where I live for the next couple days. And Monday, I probably will take off and not stream, probably prepare for a stream Tuesday. So most likely, I may share some clips, but it won't be until Tuesday, our next stream, of which I think I'm going to be doing a real deconstruction of the rhetoric, looking at the capital incidents, looking at the rhetoric, theories of magic, and understandings of language. And maybe we'll have something insightful to say. We'll see. But thank you, guys. Love everyone. Again, as always, until next time,